reduce the impacts of poverty on our students, their families, and our community.
Thank you very much. Director Snyder, would you read our mission and vision statements, please?
Why, Mr. President, I'd love to. Our mission statement reads, to enhance each student's abilities by providing a quality education enriched by our diverse community. And our vision statement reads, education that challenges conventional thinking, prepares all students to compete in a global society, and inspires our students, parents, staff, and the community to answer the question, what if?
Thank you very much. Last week, the board selected and appointed Linda Hayes to serve the remaining term that Bill Sherwood had been serving. And so tonight, Linda will be sworn in as a new board member, and she'll be seated immediately. I'm going to ask our board secretary to take care of those activities.
I'll get you in the microphone.
Okay, Linda, just raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Linda Hayes,
I, Linda Hayes,
do solemnly swear to support
do solemnly swear to support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully
and that I will faithfully
and impartially,
and impartially,
to the best of my
to
ability,
the best of my ability,
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of the office of School Board Director
of the Office of School Board Director
in the Davenport Community School District,
in the Davenport Community School District,
as now or hereafter required by law.
as now or hereafter required by law.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary, and welcome, Linda. We'll continue. We'll move right into student board reports.
So I'm waiting for someone to meet my eyes. They haven't. Caitlin, you first.
This past weekend, our show choirs went to Mount Pleasant High School and competed, and our varsity group CSI got first place and then grand champs in the nighttime. So that was nice. And then the boys soccer team just held their fundraiser, a chili supper at the last basketball game, and that went real well. There was a big turnout, lots of people at the game, and that was fun. And Indigo Inc., our magazine to showcase the fine arts at our school, has just been recognized by the National Council of Teachers of English.
Well, at West, we have our special ed department is the students there are creating their own little business around Valentine's Day. So one of the fundraisers they're doing is actually, well, they're calling it Buy a Crush for Your Crush. And so you get a can of Crush soda and you can send it to your Valentine this week. So.
And then our robotics team this last weekend went 5-0 at the Nebraska State Championship, which is really exciting. They will be competing in Iowa soon and hopefully going back to the international competition.
This weekend we had our winter safari dance, or winter dance that was safari themed, and we also had hosted a dance competition in the auditorium, and everything went splendidly. And our soccer team that we do with Wes is doing good again. So.
Thank you, students. Appreciate you being here and providing those reports for us. And Mr. President, that concludes the student reports for tonight.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the showcase. Superintendent Tate.
Principal Sherry Womack will start us off. We appreciate her being here with representatives of Keystone Academy. Thank you.
I think that's why I want this.
At Keystone, we just kind of wrote down a few things of, I better tell you who I am. I think you did. Dr. Tate, I'm sorry. I'm Sherry Womack, and I didn't know Miss Hayes. I'm sorry. I'm the principal at Keystone Academy. At Keystone, we're a K-12 building. We have general and special ed students with the most significant behavior issues, and those are the only students that can be placed at Keystone. The number and population of students is ever changing, and we've had at least 195 students enrolled sometimes since the beginning of our school year. We use the specialized classroom management system and it's part of the Boys Town model, and teaching behaviors is as equally as important as teaching academics in our building. And you will hear other schools say that they are doing the Boys Town model, and they are, but they are doing the well-managed school model unless they're a BD program or us. And so we are a lot more in depth in teaching our social skills. We do very specific and student individualized training. We have a leveling system, including extrinsic motivation, and then a fading process to hopefully fade students off needing that. And it's used by all staff to address, teach, and change behavior of our students. There are 4 components. There are the social skills curriculum, teaching interactions, the 3-level motivation system, that's daily progress and merit, and then if a student has a problem, they would have a chance to go to the crisis interventionist. And then our 3-level motivation system are daily points, and that's where everyone, when they come in, they're on a daily point sheet, and that's basically where they're learning the basic social skills and lots of extrinsic motivation. When they move to progress, a student, they're learning and more advanced social skills, and we're starting to fade the point system, hopefully. And then merit is when students are consistently practice appropriate behaviors, and then they self-correct themselves. And we should, by merit, be fading off entirely of our motivation system. Tonight we have Kate Feltz. She's one of our elementary teachers here with 2 of our students, Daryl Thomas and Elijah Wires, and they're going to kind of show you, we thought it would be better that you see how this works rather than I talk it through, because we started out that way. So. Mrs. Karstens. You might want to pull it back a little bit. Just sit down. Let me sit down. No.
We're a little nervous, sorry, so bear with us. The first thing that I want to show you today is a plan teaching, and that's the first thing that we do in the morning. Every morning we have behavior awareness time, and everyone in the building starts the same way. Different behaviors they might be doing, but everyone starts with behavior awareness time. So when we go in, we don't assume that any of the students know the appropriate skills. We introduce the social skills, list the steps, as you can see, give reason, practice, feedback, positive points, and general praise. So we want to just work through it really quickly with you, just kind of show you what we do. We do have all of our posters of all of them. They're up on the wall so the students can see it. We can see it. So if we're like, oh my gosh, you forget something, you can look right there. Or if students forget one of the steps of something, you'll see that in a few minutes. They can look up and see it. So we're going to do a plan teaching. I don't really know where to start. With my boys here. And we're going to do, the skill that we're going to do is following instructions. Okay, so are you ready for plan teaching? Awesome. And the way I know that you're ready is if you're both sitting up tall and you're looking at me. Awesome, thanks. Can you put your clipboard down for now? Thank you. Nice job, Elijah. Okay, so what I want to do today is a plan teaching for following instructions, okay? And you know that we have the poster on our wall. So you know the behaviors that we do for following instructions are look at the person, say okay, do what you've been asked right away, and check back. Okay, the reason that we do this is so that
when we're given a direction, when we get our academic things done or anything that the adult is asking you to do, then you can get to those other things that you want to do in your free time, okay? So I want to practice this in just a second, and I'm going to have you show me one way to do this, okay? Are you ready? Okay, can you guys go like you're on the computers? Yes. We're a little nervous. Fantastic. Okay, gentlemen, it's time for math. Can you get off the computers and come sit down at your seats? Great job. You did a great job following that direction. You came as soon as I said it, and I really appreciate that. Let's pull out your point sheets. And Mrs. Carson's is going to help us. She's going to give you points for following those instructions. You did a great job with that plan teaching and following those instructions. Okay, so that's kind of what we do to start off the day. We'll pick one thing that we really need to work on in our room. Everybody's room is a little different, but we have the posters throughout ours. Okay, and then I think we go to the next one. Why did it turn off?
So they're actually filling out the same sheets that we have.
They are. You have the yellow sheet in front of you, and on the left-hand side is the front of the point sheet is all of your positive points, and then when we're going to show you when they earn negative points in just a minute, and that's on the inside of the card. On the front, on the far right-hand side, that's all of like the behaviors, and on the left-hand side, that's academic points that they earn. So then for each, there's a blank on it, and you can put like reading, math. We have a behavior awareness, that's the first one that's always on there. So they can earn points for following those. Following those steps. Okay, the next one that I want to do is I want to show you, guys ready? Okay, I want to show you a corrective teaching interaction. So, I don't know where to look. Sorry. I feel like I'm turning my back to everybody. So I'm going to show you a corrective teaching interaction, and that would be like if they didn't follow the directions right away, and I'm going to show you how they go to their first step, because they earn negative points, and the first time that they don't follow direction, they get a warning, and then they go to the next one, which is negative 1,000 points, and then we do a corrective teaching interaction, which again is on a chart, and it kind of helps us. Sometimes you forget where you are, or it just helps you get through it, and sometimes you might have someone that says, Mrs. Phelps, come on, and we say, you know what, we have to go through all of these steps to make it count. So then they get back on track, and then they earn back half those points. So like we're going to show you a student lose 1,000 points. He'll earn back 500 of those points. Should we do this? Okay, so we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to show you someone not doing this. So can you guys go play on the computers again? Thanks. Nice job. Gentlemen, can you come take your seats because we need to do math? Oh, Elijah, nice job going straight to your seat. I appreciate you following that direction. Mrs. Parsons is going to give you points for following that direction. Daryl, what I need you to do is follow direction the first time. Okay, so this is your warning. I need you to get off the computer so we can get some work done in math. Okay, I can totally understand that you don't feel like doing it right now, but we need to get back to your seat so we can, we're at negative 1,000 now because you're still not following the direction. We need to come back to your seat so we can earn those 500 back, get to math so you can get back over here to being on the computer. Nice job. I appreciate you coming to your seat. Do you want to open your card up and write down 1,000 negative for following instructions? Good job. So he writes the points down, and then we initial it. And you'll see, since you have that, you'll see in there that there are different sections for the places that they lose points. Or earn negatives, excuse me. Okay, Daryl, so what I want to do is really quickly go through with you the corrective teaching interaction. Okay, so what I need you to do is sit up and look at me. Thank you. I appreciate you looking at me because then I know you're really listening to me. Okay, your inappropriate behavior was not following directions the first time given when I asked you to come to your seat from the computer. Okay, so you earned negative 1,000 points for that. But I want to have you earn back 500 of those points. Okay, so next time what I want you to do is think about all those things we've brainstormed and put on the wall on ideas on how to get through things when you don't want to, like counting to 10 in your head, or squeezing your fists and unclenching and clenching your fists, or putting your head down for a few seconds, okay? And that's what I want to see you do, okay? So the reason that we do that is so that you can get your work done, and then you can get to some of that stuff quicker, and then if we need more time for fun activities at the end of the day, or more time to do something that you want to do, we'll have time for that, okay? So can we practice this really quick? I want to practice with you. Since it was not following instructions, what I want to do is I want you to read this for me.
Follow the instructions, look at the picture, say okay, do what you have been asked right away, check that.
Awesome. You did a fantastic job. I really appreciate you doing that. Can we write down your points then? You earned 500 of those points back. Go ahead, write down 500. Fantastic. So that's what we do for the corrective teaching interaction. And it always comes back to they earn half of their points back for doing it. And we do have, I don't know if it's on a slide, the 1,000 and then 5,000. Maybe go to the next slide. Okay, so, oh yes. So if it doesn't go, if we didn't have wonderful Daryl who just said, okay, and came back to his seat, sometimes we have to use a few of our de-escalating strategies. So we have to use empathy and praise and coupling statements and just kind of talk to them. In my room, a lot of times we use a lot of cool down time. Sometimes they just need a few minutes to kind of get their head on straight and be ready to go, okay, I'm ready, I'm coming to do my stuff. When that doesn't happen, then they get a warning and then they get issued a moderate. And what a moderate is they've earned negative 5,000 points. After they've done that, if, like we say, it doesn't go so well, then we continue the same process and try more de-escalating strategies. We give a lot more time. If that's not working, we try reasoning or coupling statements, and then they would go to, like it says, they get an office referral warning, and then they'd end up with a referral, which is a negative 10,000 points. Now they do get the chance to earn all of those, or half of those points back. I think it's next. So when they go to an office referral, they go see the crisis interventionist, and they are given time in that room to just kind of sit until they're calm. Sometimes it's really quick, sometimes it takes a little longer. They do reflection interventions. They go through corrective teaching again with the interventionists in there, and they go through scenarios on what could you have done, what should you have done. They earn their positive points back, and then they need to come back to class. They have to give an apology, and then there's no shopping on that day because they earn points to go to the store, and on the day of, if they've earned a referral, they don't get to go to the store, and that kind of bums us out. I think, oh yeah, this is me too, sorry. Like I said, they're not the only ones nervous. So at the end of the day, we go through our point sheet. So it's one of the best parts, because what we do is we tally the students' points, positive and negative. So we go through that left-hand side first, and we see how many points they get for their academics for the day, and then their behavior, and then we put that together, and they have all their positive. Then we open this up, and we would go through it like today. You know, I could talk with Daryl, and I could say, Daryl, wow, I see you have 1,000 negative here, and it's for not following instructions. Tell me what happened there, or if it wasn't me, I can say that, or I can say, what do you think we can do tomorrow? What do you think what should we work on tomorrow? What would you say?
Following instructions.
Following instructions, okay. First time or the third time? First time, okay. And then the second page that you see there is the page we tear it off, and this is what gets sent home to parents every day. I skipped ahead, but we do this. We send this home for the parents, but we fill this out with the student so that the student can tell us, because on the top it says, what did the student do well today? So we ask them, our paraprofessionals or our right-hand people ask them if they're meeting with them, or we do, and we say, what did you do well today? And sometimes they can tell us right away, and other times they can't, so we give them something like, oh my gosh, in math you were on fire. So then they're like, oh yeah. You know, so they see those positive things, so we write that down so somebody at home can see. And then the second area says, what areas, what does the student need to work on, basically. So then we talk with them and we let them come up with it. So Daryl, if I spoke to you about that, about this day, what would you tell me? What do you need to work on? Okay, he said we would work on following instructions and staying on task, so we would write that down for his parent to know. And then on the next one it says, ask the student about, so if we're doing something cool in class, or a lot of times I'll just put, ask them about their day. And then the parent, if they return it, we want the parents to see this, and we do make a lot of phone calls home, but we, for positive and negative, but we will say, you know what, if you bring this back tomorrow, you'll get 1,000 points. And they come back because they want that. And if it's something that we really want to get home, we might say 2,000 points. But you can see here we set goals for the next day during this meeting. Okay, if we said for the following instructions, what are you going to do? Tell me the steps. What are you going to do tomorrow? We get their point sheet ready for the next day, and then they can go to the store unless they've had a referral. Let's see. Oh, see, I jumped out of order. So there's. I think we're good on that.
Did you show them what?
Did I forget?
No, just show them. Do you?
Oh, another thing that we do. Thank you.
Just real quickly hold that up. Show 'em.
So every student has a file. And on the top part, it shows the teaching record. So anywhere that they've earned, like where he earned his negatives, then I write down how many on that day for which area. Because then it shows us if I can follow across, if that's his only area, then I know we really need to focus with him on following instructions. Now, if it's not greeting others, or language, or peer behavior, then we know where our focus is going to be. And then down here, we keep a motivational system account book, so it keeps their points every day. So we can see how many points they earn, how many they lose, and then the ratio, which is really important because sometimes you get to the end of the day and you're like, gosh, I told him a bunch of times he was doing great. And then all of a sudden you look and you go, wait, maybe I didn't say it as many times as I should have. So it kind of teaches you to go, tomorrow I have to be better about pointing out all those positive things because I saw him doing them. And then we keep track of what they buy. What else? Did I forget anything?
Nope.
Okay. So we have one of these for every student. What else I think is that? Let's see. Do we have another slide?
Yep, one more for me.
Is this me?
Up. This one's me.
Did I forget anything?
Nope, you did great.
All right.
They can stay right there. And our goal at Keystone is for students to learn, practice, and use appropriate behaviors and social skills, to transition back into a regular school setting or a less restrictive setting. And the thing I want to say to the board, to Dr. Tate, to say thank you. Thank you for the opportunity for me to be there, for me, our staff, our students. I would tell you, I don't think there could be a better place to be. And the first month or two, I'm not sure I would have said that. So I think we've come a long way. Don't you guys? Don't you guys think it's a lot better since we're, yes. So if it hadn't been for you all, we couldn't do this. The support, everything. I honestly don't know what to say, but thank you. And I want to say thank you to our boys. Thank you. Thank you. And Ms. Phelps. I didn't know if you all had any questions at all that you wanted to ask them, or.
Well, you never know, but it's likely. Director Crumwoody.
Yeah, I would just, first of all, thanks to Elijah and Daryl. Man, you guys are just great sitting up here and going through this. This is kind of scary, isn't it? Sitting in front of all these people. So congratulations to you, and thank you for doing this for us and showing us what you're doing out at Keystone. And thanks to Sherry and the staff for also sharing this. I've heard just phenomenal things about things that are going on at your school, and I just want all of you to keep up the good work. You're doing a great job. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Director DeFile.
I just got to say, I hope there's a few thousand points in it for you tomorrow for coming and visiting. Just saying. If it were me, that's what I'd be doing. So.
Very good. Director Kluhl.
And I think, having this attention, this one-on-one attention, and this sheet showing what the student has done, and then not only that, but then the communication with the parents each day is great. You know, I'll tell you guys one thing. I was down, we've got this school called the Creative Arts Academy, and I don't know if you're going to go to it when you get older or not. You might. But one thing I noticed about these kids down there, they talk about leadership down there, and they tell those students, look people in the eye when you talk to them. Now, I don't know if that's on your charts or not. It is, but you guys do it, and that is important. You're looking me right in the eye. That makes me feel like, wow, you're really listening to this old adult up here, which is a big deal. Adults like that. So thank you very much. Well, you guys obviously are on top of the game. You bet.
Anybody else? Director Dickman.
I was just curious for you young gentlemen, if you can remember back to when you started, do you think that you're doing better now? Do you think following, you write everything down, does that help you remember and kind of keep track of what progress you're making? Do you think you'll go back to your regular school someday? I'm glad to hear that you guys are doing top notch.
They've both improved.
Oh, yes.
Behavior and academically.
Anybody else? Director Snyder.
I just have a question. At the beginning of the presentation, I thought it said that you guys are working towards transitioning away from the point system.
Oh, excuse me. Would you go up to the microphone so everybody can hear?
Come here, dear. Come right here, sweetie.
Beforehand, he was
He's been
begging
waiting
to
for
do
that
it.
all
So.
night.
He was tapping this the whole time. Okay, now tell them what we have.
We have
Daily in progress.
we got progress, daily in progress, and we got bonds that we supposed to buy. That when we go, we work on our reading, and then we go back to regular schools. And then we got merit. We got a merit card, and that's like if we go on road trips, like you get them for free and stuff.
So we're trying to transition away from having to have point cards all the time. And so by the time you get to merit, you're transitioning away from needing to do all the shopping, and it's supposedly more intrinsic, and that's where we want to get. I mean, not that we don't all need extrinsic motivation. I mean, we do get paychecks, but but do you know what I mean?
This is the progress card. So, and there's two other cards. So that's where you move away from.
Ms. Holland gathered these and said, should we take these? And I said, I don't think we'll need that. What's this one?
Process, and this is merit.
Come over here. Elijah, tell them what's that one?
That one's merit, and that one progress.
And that's when you process out of.
How many bonds does it take to get this?
You gotta buy 100 bonds.
And how much do the bonds cost?
Like 600.
How close are you guys?
I'm not even that close. I got like 12 of them right now.
You kind of like things in the store. They like the things in the
The
store.
best thing about this is for the students kind of monitor themselves. Some students need a daily reinforcement, and they know this of themselves because they'll get on progress and end up going back to daily. So, like Elijah just said, I need to buy from the store each day. I don't want to spend my points on bonds. But Daryl has, how many, about 12, do you think? The 12 bonds purchased. So, okay.
Are those cards in keeping with the Boys Town model?
Mm-hmm. They're part of that.
Cool. Thank you.
Here, I'll just hand this to you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Anybody else?
You want to say something?
Director. Oh, okay. Excuse me. Just a second.
Elijah, just say something. Yeah, he's talking about that if you do get a referral, you can go back down from progress to daily, or from merit to progress, and then back all the way down to daily, and then have to buy back up. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Elijah.
Director Hayes.
I'd just like to say thank you to the both of you for making sure that we're clear, and for you just jumping up and explaining the whole process without, your teachers doing it, that this is kind of your thing and you're taking care of it, and we appreciate that.
Director Dickman.
So obviously getting all the stuff at the store is nice, but do you feel like you want to learn more now just because kind of learning is fun? Is that something you didn't care about as much at the beginning and you care about it more now? Yeah. No, you care. What? I'm just curious. What do you wanna? What are you thinking you might do when you grow up? Math? You want to do math? That's a good idea. You have any ideas yet? Basketball. Hey, you need him to do your math to make sure that the team's not cheating you.
I want you to tell them about the reading. Do you know where they came from?
Oh my gosh. No, I know what he used to do when I'd say math.
Okay.
Daryl,
Can we tell that?
Can I tell that? What did you used to do when I'd say it was time for math? You could talk to the microphone.
What did you do?
Go ahead. Go ahead. You've been quiet.
Tell them what you did.
I used to lead a classroom.
And not nice in a nice way.
And now?
What do you do?
I just take a deep breath and then I do my math.
Yeah, and you learned that you're actually pretty good at it, right?
Really good.
Really good at math.
Well, thank you all, and thank you, Sherry, for leading there at Keystone.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Excuse me, Superintendent Tate, we'll move on to the Promise Bricks program presentation.
Well, thank you very much. I think we have at least one presenter tonight that go ahead and come forward. Appreciate you being here tonight. Tonya Williams is going to make the presentation. That's going to be a hard act to follow, but I'm sure you can.
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Tate, with your permission, I have just a one-page flyer for today. Is that okay if I leave that with you all?
Certainly.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. So you just flip it down to each one. Okay. Sounds good. Let's see. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tanya Williams, and I bring you greetings from United Neighbors, right around the corner at 808 North Harrison Street, Davenport. 40 years of serving in the community, and our mission is people serving people. I am one of the newer staff, but I'll tell you that you all probably know Dr. Ida Johnson, so it would only be fair for me to recognize her as she sits in the second row modestly, and she's allowed us to be here today. Thank you. And I thank you for, on behalf of our agency, for allowing us to come and share about the Promise Bricks today. Thank you, Dr. Tate, and thank you to all of you. I have a presentation that's way too long for 10 minutes, but what I will do is start, and then I might skip around just a little bit to make sure that you have what you need, and that we're able to share with you the exciting partnership that we have in regards to the Promise Bricks. United Neighbors, again, 40 years serving in the community. We are a community-based agency that provides advocacy, programs, and services for everyone, for youth, for families, for seniors, individuals, neighborhood groups, and also community. We have crisis prevention and intervention, and a host of housing advocacy to keep others out of foreclosure, and also helping them not only stay in their home, but to maintain their homes as well. We have accessibility resources and Neighborhood Watch community development and improvement. We offer education, prevention, and resources. We're also a HUD certified local housing agency. And although we are here primarily in Scott County, we do offer services in the metro as resources are available. We strive to assist those in need to help them to better sustain their quality of life and overall health, education, and wellness. Promise Bricks. We have a new partnership with Davenport Community Schools that we are excited about. All of us are concerned about our graduation rates for all of our students in Davenport and in our community. And so we have a new Peace Garden that we have started working on, and we're going to be breaking ground this spring. And our Peace Garden represents the community, as always. We represent families, we represent individuals, and so we will be offering bricks to community members that want to have their family, business, church, or organization engraved on those. And within the Peace Garden, we had a conversation with a couple people, and in our think tank, we were talking about solutions to graduation. And we talked about the promise to graduate, and we all know how important it is to have a high school education and trying to mentor students to strive toward that. We do have a solution for that. Our promise bricks are an incentive to students that commit to graduate by signing a form. They may be at risk, they may not, but the reason for the commitment is to get them connected to services and resources. And so with Davenport Community Schools, we will be offering a promise brick to anyone that is interested. Pam Kirsch and her team has already continuing graduation support advocacy. And so in partnership with them, we will be offering bricks with the student's name and their graduation date on there that will go in the promise brick section of the Peace Garden. And I'm wondering if Pam Kirsch would give us a few minutes to share some information and about the partnership.
I just want to say how excited I am to be working with Tanya and United Neighbors. This is in direct alignment with what we are trying to do with graduation advocacy and get our community partners and get our community to be graduation advocates. And this is just the perfect way to have the community involved. So I want to thank you for being part of this and just let you guys know that we're on board 100% with this. So thank you.
Thank you. So contact information, and we'll go back over this later. Certainly Dr. Johnson, Executive Director at United Neighbors, myself, staff liaison, and Don Austin, who is our board chair for the Peace Garden. Pam Kirsch would always be the contact for connecting students to graduation advocacy, and we are going to be one of those places that offer resources and also information in the community, and up until 5:00 p.m. So that will be something new. I'm going to skip through a couple of slides here. The Promise Brick is a symbol of hope for youth and families. Sponsors may purchase a brick for $75, again with the student's name and graduation date. And that shows, as a sponsor, your faith in the student. And we've been asked quite a few times, well, if they want to sponsor someone that they know, that's great. We will honor that. We'll contact the student and parent and get that set up. And also, if someone wants to remain anonymous, they can also do that. And say someone wants to donate and sponsor a group of children and they don't know the students. We are working with Davenport Schools in creating a list of students that already have committed and ongoing want to stay in school and need help. And we will ask Davenport School System staff to select the students based on interest. And so everything would be done through Pam and her team in partnership. Let me see here. I can talk about neighborhood organizing, but I'm going to skip a little bit. We offer more than 10 programs throughout the year. And one of the things I was thinking about is how do we connect our programs and services to students now? We do have an after-school program. We also have our summer program and crisis intervention. All of that are things that students may need, not just adults. And so we are open to expanding programs that are needed if students call and they need to come by, say, after school or on other different program nights. We do have in our after school not only education, but athletics and also ways to be involved in the community, such as graffiti, cleanup, and other. Give me one moment. I'm going to skip to how will students be selected? We talked about that. Sponsors can purchase the Promise Brick, contacting United Neighbors, identifying who the student is, or leaving that up to the schools to select. Sponsors will always get a copy of the student's name. And we're excited about being a part of a solution. Bricks are a great thing. They're beautiful. But more than that, they really speak to our commitment, and for a kid to know that someone's investing time, money, and energy in them, and they can walk and see their name in a Peace Garden and actually be a part of that and be able to participate in activities means a lot. And we have had some students that are interested, and we've actually had grandparents and other people that have purchased bricks for their family members. A lot of this we've covered. We know that Davenport Schools has reduced the percentage of dropout, but there's still more need for ongoing support. There's always need to encourage and actually return to school, as Pam and the team had talked to us. So we want to be a part of that graduation support, and we are going to be a location for information and referral services. And we're excited about the partnership. You all know the need. There's students that we all know are connected with that are struggling to either stay in school or return to school, and we can all be a part of that prevention. Materials will be available at United Neighbors as well as other community partners, and those are data that we all know. Congratulations to Davenport Schools for reducing the dropout rate, and there's so much need to do more. We all understand that. Any questions?
You know, Tanya, I think that was only about 8 minutes.
Yes.
Very, very good.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions, comments from the board? Director Kluhl.
Well, Tanya, I mean, it's thank you for presenting on behalf of United Neighbors.
You're welcome, sir.
As a Hilltop collaborator down there, it's so important. I think your visual presence there is, every time I see that 808 Harrison thing and the signing out front, I just think that this is a welcoming neighborhood that is growing, and you are certainly a part of what's making that happen. So I'm very appreciative. The brick thing I think is fascinating. At McKinley Elementary, we did something similar to this some years ago, where every kid had a hand in designing mosaics on top of bricks, and they felt some ownership of that. And I think this just further ties at least the students, as I'm thinking of them from this board table, into that community, being a part of it, having hands-on, and I think that's very important.
Thank you.
Director Defoe.
So are the funds being raised going back to support dropout prevention programs being offered by United Neighbors?
Good question. We haven't worked out all of the specifics, but certainly the resources part will go to bricks and also back into the community for ongoing incentives and building for students.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Oh, Olivia.
Yes.
So are the bricks for like all ages, or is it specific to high school, or?
Good question. We talked about high school students, and then one of the community members asked, well, what if I want to sponsor for a junior high student? As we know, sometimes kids drop out in junior high, so by the time we get to high school, we're trying to find them and trying to encourage them to return. And so it would be for junior high and also high school students. Good question. Thank you.
Anybody else? Director Crumwitty.
Yeah, Tanya, I just want to thank you, and I want to thank United Neighbors not only for this effort, but everything that they are doing in our community. And we all know dropout prevention is not just a school situation, but it's a situation that all the community needs to get involved with. And thank you for doing your part, so we appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else? All right. Thank you very much, Tanya.
Thank you.
Great
Appreciate
presentation.
it. Thanks for your time.
We'll move on to communications. Director Crumwitty, would you please read our upcoming events?
Mr. President. February 16th is get on the bus trip to the Capitol. And there's some of us going on the Legislative Advocacy Committee. Hopefully some of our student board members will be riding on the bus with us. And if anyone out in the audience is interested in going to the Capitol with us next Monday, get in touch with us after the meeting. February 23rd, regular meeting, 6 o'clock at the Jim Hester Boardroom. February 17th, the ILSIAC meeting, 5:30 here at the Jim Hester Boardroom. February 23rd, regular meeting, 6 o'clock here at the Jim Hester Boardroom. March 2nd, Committee of the Whole here at the Boardroom. March 3rd, Legislative Advocacy Committee, 3 p.m. in the Executive Boardroom. March 4th is the Policy Committee at 4 o'clock in the Executive Boardroom. March 9th, the regular meeting, 6 o'clock, Jim Hester Boardroom. March 16th through the 20th is our spring break in the Davenport schools. And March 23rd is a regular meeting, 6 o'clock here in the Jim Hester Boardroom. And March 30th is our Culinary Arts Pro Start event at 5:30 at the River Center.
Great, thank you very much. Next is open forum. We do have 2 open forum requests. Open forum is a time for members of the community to give input at a board meeting regarding school district issues or concerns. Individuals who want to speak should fill out an open forum request and give it to the board secretary prior to open forum. The board will not act on any issue presented during open forum if it was not published as an agenda item. The Iowa Open Meetings Law prohibits action on any issue that is not on the agenda. The president will set the amount of time allowed for individuals to speak during open forum. The board asks that no charges or complaints be made against any individual employees of the district or community during open forum. Remarks that reflect negatively on the character or motives of any person will be called out of order. We have 2 requests, and first, when you come up to the microphone, give us your name and address, and you'll have 2 minutes. And first will be Julie Cockworth, or Wart. Is Julie here? And then will be Vera Kelly.
Hello, I'm Julie Cockworth, 1528 Robeson Avenue, Bettendorf, Iowa. I'm employed by the Davenport School District at Children's Village West, proudly working with our youngest students in this district, the infants, toddlers, and twos. I specifically work with infants. I find it to be the most rewarding I have done in my 9 years at Children's Village West. There's always rumors whenever there's budget cuts that somebody's going to get cut. I'm just here to ask you, as a board, to remember our littlest children. The first 2,000 days of a child's life is their most important in growth and development. That puts them at 5.5. The first 3 years is when the brain develops and grows the most in their entire life. These little children are learning and growing at a rapid rate in the infants 1s and 2s. At Davenport West, at Children's Village West, we have 2 rooms for our infants and 1-year-olds and 2 2-year-old rooms. Hoover has 1 room for each, the infants and toddlers in one, and a 2-year-old room. These children mean the world to those that work with them because we get to see vast amounts of progress in that time span. Now, the state of Iowa has done wonderful with the 4-year-old program, giving free preschool to the 4-year-olds. I love the program. I've worked in that program. It's great. But By the time a child turns 4, that is their 460th day of their life. We lost a lot of those 2,000 days, and I want to see that we keep all of those days and nurture them and love them and help them grow. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Julie. Next is Vera Kelly.
Good evening. My name is Vera Kelly, and I live at 4415 Jersey Ridge Road in Davenport, Iowa. And the reason I'm here is because 2 great men in my life passed on, and it was Bill Sherwin and my dad, Reverend Arthur Herod. So I'm here to thank President Johansson and the school board and Dr. Tate for what you all done for me in the passing of my father by sending condolences and a plant to Oxford, Mississippi. And second, I am so thankful that Bill Sherwin is smiling right now because he believed in diversity. And you all have selected Linda Hayes to fill his place. And I want to say congratulations to Linda. And I think the school board has moved in the right direction. You has did a great milestone, and I look forward to working with you and the community.
Thank you very much, Vera. All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. May I have a motion?
Mr. President,
Director Crumwitty.
I move the consent agenda as presented by the administration.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director Crumwitty?
Yes.
Director DeFow?
Yes.
Director Snyder?
Yes.
Director Dickman?
Yes.
Director Kluhl?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion regarding approval of bills?
Mr. President,
Director Kluhl.
I move that the board approve the following resolution as recommended by the administration for the adoption of bills. The resolution is as follows. Resolved that all claims presented to the board, having been duly certified as correct by the secretary, reviewed by the administration and board members, and they are hereby audited and allowed as just claims and warrants drawn on the treasury for the several amounts. Further resolved, the payments of claims and salaries be approved as presented for the period of January 22nd, 2015 through February 4th, 2015.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Call for the vote. Director Kluhl?
Yes.
Director Snyder?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Dickman?
Yes.
Director DeFow?
Yes.
Director Crumwitty?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Superintendent report.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you know, we have an energy conservation effort ongoing this year. The primary purpose for it was to save money, and we're trying to save $180,000 this year, but also, as we were reminded by Bill Sherwood, often we have an obligation to conserve all of our energy on the planet and be environmentally safe. So I have a committee that we put together, and we started looking at ways that we could save money, and we knew that if we could turn off the electricity and power we didn't need, that would certainly help. We decided that a very simple thing is to make sure that we have something over every light that reminds people that you should turn the light out. My original idea was to take a piece of notebook paper and say, turn off the darn light, and put it up there with a piece of masking tape, but that didn't go. So what we did, we reached out to students and say, help us come up with some sort of a design, and we do have someone that came up with this design that's a lot better than turn off the darn lights. And it says, play your part, please turn the lights off when you leave, and it's very beautifully done. And Devin Scaff, if you'd stand up, he's here tonight, and I want to recognize you and say thank you very much for having reached out and done that. You're going to be on thousands and thousands of light switches throughout the district. So we appreciate. He's from North High School. He's a senior. His medium is visual arts, and he's won lots of awards for it, and he hopes to do animation in college. So again, thank you for your patience tonight. We appreciate it. I want to reiterate something that's been in the newspaper about West High School Endoderm theme. Remember, they've got the $10,000 MIT grant, and they're developing a bracelet that will be put on individuals and would give a signal if they're left in the car, and mainly we're talking about infants. And they did have a report this week, and they're going to continue their work, and then they have an MIT coach coming on February 14th, and they'll make a major presentation in the summer. So I'm really proud of what they're doing. Just think of the fact what this can actually do in the lives it can save once it's done. So we're very, very proud of their efforts. I'm passing out a report that Dr. Owa prepared concerning the Martin Luther King Mentor Day. She's not able to be here, but it's a great report. And in short, on January 29th, we had about 150 eighth grade students and mentors and Davenport Community School District staff members at St. Ambrose. It was a joint project between the school district and St. Ambrose, and Ryan Sadler, who's the diversity director, was our partner for this. They spent a day, and what their main focus was the 6 core principles of Muhammad Ali: dedication, giving, confidence, conviction, respect, spirituality. They had presenters, and you can see on the report the people who presented to our young gentlemen, and then they would meet around tables and actually discuss it. This is the first time we've done it. It won't be the last, and we're very proud of this effort. And again, it's just we're trying to do everything that we can to make a difference in the lives of our young men. And Mr. President, this concludes my report for tonight.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll move to other items requiring action. May I have a motion regarding the public hearing and approval of plans and specifications for district cabling project?
Mr. President,
Director Cromedy.
I move the administration's recommendation that the board approve the plans and specifications for the district security camera and network infrastructure cabling project.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We will now hold a public hearing on the proposed project as published in the Quad City Times on January 30th, 2015. Anyone wishing to speak on this project, please step forward to the microphone. State your name and address for the record. Seeing and hearing none, I now declare the public hearing closed. Is there any additional discussion on this matter? Director Cromedy.
Yeah, I would like to, and Mike's ready, for the public information and for our information to explain a little bit about the plans and specifications.
This project is to complete the installation of the security cameras throughout the district. The secondary project is, well, the first phase of it is complete. There are a few odds and ends. Once we do an installation, we find some places that we can't quite see or some things we didn't quite like, so we go back and clean those up, and that's now taking place with the secondary schools. This focuses on the primary. It provides the network cabling for the security camera installation, and it is also providing improved cabling, some improved switch gear locations and so forth, and some improvements in the wireless network across the primary schools. We expect this to be complete before school starts in the fall. When the project is complete, all schools combined, we will have nearly 900 security cameras in the district.
Thank you. I do have a question about such facilities as the administration building, the maintenance area, that entire area out there, Keystone Academy. Are we also putting security cameras in those areas?
We currently don't have plans for the operations center or the administration building here. We have had some recent discussion among the Security and Safety Committee about adding the secure entries to this building, to operations and so forth. And the question about cameras in these locations is still under discussion. Our focus was to complete schools first.
And Keystone Academy?
Keystone, yes. I believe that we have cameras in Keystone. It should be like any other school, and the same software system. And if that's not complete now, it will be as part of this project.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Director Kluhl.
Mike, is the educational aspect of this project pretty much limited to providing hotspots, Wi-Fi hotspots?
It's to provide improved Wi-Fi coverage throughout all of the school buildings. There is some existing in some buildings now. This puts more hotspots in and improves network cabling to take advantage of the recent increase in bandwidth that the Learning Information Systems has provided.
Okay, thank you.
Director Snyder.
Does this 600,000 include work that is scheduled to be done at Fillmore for their expansion, or is that part of the project, the Fillmore project itself?
That will be executed with the Fillmore project itself.
Okay.
I would mention that this is the cabling and the broadband access, so it's two things: the security camera cabling, the improvements in broadband. The camera installation is an additional cost that was approved on a contract last April.
Anybody else?
Me.
Oh, Director Kluhl.
Yeah. I was just curious whether this plays into the governor's desire to provide greater internet connectivity, and the city is also interested in providing more access. Does this make us more capable in that regard?
I'd have to defer to Mr. Sloat to respond to that. I can't say.
Who just happens to be here. Yeah, me.
To answer your question, yes, this will help us with our broadband throughout the district. Part of what's going on is an upgrade to our closets and a cabling that delivers the both the wireless and the hardwired access to the buildings. So this is something we've been looking forward to in the elementary as we've gotten most of it done in the other buildings. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, we'll call for the vote. Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Dickman.
Yes.
Director DeFau.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. I have a motion regarding approval of a firm to provide consulting support for long-range facilities plan.
Mr. President,
Director Dickman.
I move the administration's recommendation that the board approve the selection of RDG Design / SGGM Architects to provide consulting support for the long-range facilities plan update project for a fee not to exceed $100,000.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Dickman.
I just want to comment that I think that we're making a wise choice here, that investing now in making a plan that will do the best for will be the best for our district. I think that it's the wise choice to invest now in making sure we know what we're doing than getting halfway through it and figuring out we want to change direction.
Any other discussion? Director DeFau.
And I take a somewhat different approach to it and wondered if the administration might speak to why they felt compelled to engage a consultant in the evaluation of the long-range facilities plan.
There are a number of pieces of work that will be coordinated in this effort that includes an assessment of the existing conditions in all of the buildings, some work with Mr. Scott and Schneiden and others on taking a look at our educational specifications, that is, what are the requirements that the buildings must have to support the program of instruction. And so we'll do a better job of defining that more clearly and precisely, and then we'll compare existing conditions to our ed spec to find out where the differences are in each building, or what things the buildings don't support well or don't do well to support the program of instruction. And that all helps us in to put together a plan where we can prioritize the expenditures of facility improvements in a manner that meets the ongoing operations and maintenance needs of the buildings, but also focuses our improvement efforts on making the buildings better support the program of instruction. All of that requires both staff hours that in the schedule we have available we don't have internally, and certain pieces of expertise that we don't have internally, and that this firm and others that we interviewed have a great deal of experience in helping school districts do exactly this kind of work.
And also, I think we all realize in a strategic plan, we came to a point where we said, whoops, we need to stop and we need to reevaluate. We've been pretty well going along. And anytime you do that, you're going to have to pay some consultants to look at your roofs, to look at your pavement, to look at your machinery, and you know, normally that comes in the tens of thousands of dollars just to get those appraisals. Again, if you really want a good assessment of what you've got. Another reason that we're doing this is to actually have them help us recommend about school closures, because we know that looking into the future, we might be looking at 1 or 2 school closures. And it is always an issue of how do you make those decisions. I've done that before, and I have not done it very well just because I'm not an expert. Here we're going to ask experts, and that is part of what they're going to do for us, is come up with a recommendation based on architecture, based on engineering, based on the age of buildings and things of that nature. It's not a recommendation we have to accept, but it will be done in a very objective way. So that's another spinoff that we'll get from this. So I took some convincing before I went down this route, and I listened to enough, and I sat in and listened to some of these groups talk to where I think it's a wise thing for us to do, and it's worth the investment.
Okay. And you did anticipate my next question, which was how is this going to interface with any future recommendation for repurposing of buildings? And so it's not simply a means to prioritize projects based upon existing conditions, but it is a way to do further assessment as to what buildings may potentially be repurposed in the future.
Absolutely.
Okay. Then my next question is, how does the board get to participate in that process? Because it's going to be simply more than a matter of the existing condition of a building. As we know, we've dumped millions of dollars in some buildings, and will continue to dump millions of dollars in certain buildings without any consideration of the long-term impact on the overall long-range facilities plan. Based on other criteria, such as community sentiment and things of that nature. So, you know, at what point, when is the criteria established, and what criteria are going to be established in terms of how we have that conversation? Because it's simply more than brick and mortar.
Yes, and that's one of the things that they provide as a service. They will start with the administration, which obviously includes the board. They will include the community, and that was one of the selling points of how they go about this. It's not just a matter of pulling out designs and pulling out criteria for buildings or measuring. It really is talking about what is the guidance at the highest level from the board, and then how does the community feel and what are their priorities. So they will do that. That's part of what they actually do. They'll provide us a schedule whenever the group is selected. Anybody who was in the interviews want to talk a little bit about how they discussed what Director DeFau is talking about?
Each of those points were covered, about how we get board direction into the process, about how we engage the community. We were mindful of the board's remarks and direction when you approved doing this work earlier in the year, that our community engagement effort has to be very precisely structured so that it's productive and not simply a wish list of everything that we can afford, that we want to be mindful of the use of our resources both in this project, but then the results will help to guide and prioritize our expenditures on capital improvements and operations and maintenance of facilities in the future. Ms. Tangen was in the interviews and participated in the selection. Would you care to remark at all?
So I guess in closing, I would just urge a strong bias toward transparency in the process. There are probably a few of us at this table that remember the last RDG report and how it came to have a significant role in the conversation about the closing of Grant and Johnson, where there were projections of and anticipation of building closures before there was recommendation to the board. And it was, it caused quite a stir at the time. So hence my hesitation about this process.
Additional discussion. Director Crumwoody.
Can you talk about the funding? How is this going to be paid for?
There is funds currently budgeted in the SAVE fund in this fiscal year and next fiscal year from which this would be paid.
Okay, thanks.
Additional discussion. Director Dickman.
Just wanted to clarify for all the members of the public that the SAVE is not the general fund. So this is not money that's coming out of the general fund, which is where our budget cuts currently are being mandated on because of the state's funding levels.
Thank you for that clarification. Anybody else? I've got a couple of things. This RDG report must have come out before my time on the board. And I can only imagine some of what must have happened. But I can imagine, especially because there are already reports out there based on other information that doesn't have hardly anything to do with this. And so that sensitivity, I don't even know how that gets addressed, but I concur wholeheartedly that however it's addressed, we've got to be incredibly careful with it. I think the recommendations, I've imagined what those recommendations might look like, and I've thought, boy, that's going to be potentially pretty rough. Another thing that you addressed somewhat, but is board participation. And that's one that I think is difficult also. The board probably doesn't have a clear direction on what it really wants to see in that long-range plan. And so I think about some of the interviews that we've had, and you remarked to me one time about how careful or how carefully we have to provide the boundaries for that organization that's going out and doing the interviewing. And could you just talk for a minute how you anticipate either developing or describing or giving those boundaries to the architect before they would go out and do those interviews?
The leadership team for this project, Mr. Schneiden, Mr. Scott, Ms. Tangen, myself, Mr. Sloat, and Ms. Saul, will work with the selected consultant to design exactly the community outreach program, what meetings might be held, what things might be covered, what the timing of those might be, and so that we have what we hope will be a process that informs us and informs the community, that does so in a transparent way, but that does so in a deliberate way, so as not to, as I mentioned earlier, excite miscommunication, misunderstanding, or a sort of list of things that we can't afford. We want to structure that so that we get effective input and participation from the community, but so that we are careful not to create misunderstanding or miscommunication.
And I can only imagine some of the difficulty that one would have trying to do all that and to be transparent at the same time. So I'd say I hope you can do it. Any other discussion? All right, very good. We'll call for the vote. Director Dickman.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director DeFau.
No.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion regarding approval of ad hoc committee to the board?
Mr. President,
Director Kluhl.
I move that the board approve an ad hoc committee of the board to be created to research various forms of board governance.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Director Kluhl.
the board, of course, held a discussion on this at the last committee of the whole last Monday. But for the benefit of you out there, and Linda, I think that's one of the few meetings that you didn't attend this last year. So as I was sitting up here, I was thinking about the things that we take for granted. And I said, well, you know, we take air for granted pretty much, take water for granted. You know, they're always there. You don't think about them, but they're vital. Board governance, the way that we decide that we will govern, is very important too. But, you know, we never really talk about it much. It's important. It is the way it was. In fact, I think it's probably been the way it has been since Phoebe Sudlow was superintendent of schools here in Iowa. Phoebe Sudlow was the first superintendent elected by a board to be a superintendent in the United States. And it was right here, appointed by a board, sitting at a board table here in Davenport. There's nothing wrong with the way that we have governed for the last decade that I've been here, or since Phoebe Sudlow was superintendent of schools. But I think there may be a better way. And like our vision statement reads, what if? What if there is? And what if this board says, well, it doesn't matter. We're just going to do things the way that we've always done them, because they've worked, and there's nothing wrong with the way this board is managed since Phoebe Sudlow's time. It's been very effective. This board has done some very good things. But I think the question is if it could be better. Would we be right in saying, nah, we're okay. Let's do it the way that we've always done it. So I think that this is an issue that the board should look into, because I think there's an opportunity, every opportunity, that we might be able to do things better for our students in the district. So one of the questions that came up during the committee of the whole meeting was, well, maybe we should wait until we have a new board elected this fall. And there is certainly some merit to that. But I think it's important to begin this process now. This is not going to be a short-term process. This is going to take some work on behalf of the board, some research to think about it. That's what the ad hoc committee is about. And there is no commitment on the behalf of the board at this point. It's to do a study. And sometimes, my way of thinking anyway, which is perhaps somewhat narrow and a bit different, I think prose sometimes says things in ways that we have trouble trying to talk about. And there's this by a lady named Gabriela Mistral. She was a Bolivian teacher, I think in the early 1920s, and she wrote this. She said, "Many things we can wait, many things that we need can wait. The child cannot. Now is the time his bones are being formed, his mind developed. To him we cannot say tomorrow. His name is today." And I think it's important that if we have an opportunity to do something that perhaps might be more beneficial to our students, we ought to take that opportunity. And in fact, our vision challenges us to do that. It not only says to students and staff and parents, what if? It says to this board, what if? And so that's a challenge that I hope that this board will take on, because I think our children will be the benefactors.
Any other discussion? Director Crumwitty.
I'm curious, Director Kluhl, this ad hoc committee, what exactly do you see the ad hoc committee doing? Do you see us, or the people that are on this committee, simply study, or are you thinking about going to different school districts to see how different districts govern? I'm not clear what the ad hoc committee would be doing.
The intent would be to have the ad hoc committee, which would be a short-term committee of the board, take a look at the way that we're operating, our governance style, which is often called a traditional style. It's traditional because it's like most boards in the United States, it's how they operate. There are many other ways. There are, I think the easiest way to look at it is in terms of if there is a traditional, there's a 180-degree panoply of choices that you could make, all different kinds of ways to govern. What I think, and what came up at the Committee of the Whole meeting, is that the board would be interested to know what other districts who have taken on a policy governance style of governance, what success have they had? Are they glad they did? Do they wish they hadn't? And I think that what the board would like to see is the success of other districts in adopting a policy style of governance. So I see that it would be going out to other districts, possibly visiting some of those districts, but certainly doing some research on the success of other boards in terms of looking at management of board activities in a way that's substantially different than ours. There would be some literature search involved with that, but I think the main thing that the board, as I heard from the Committee of the Whole meeting, would like to hear back from other boards and their experiences with policy governance. Thanks. And if we do find that there are things that we had not even anticipated, other styles of governance, we would certainly look at those as well.
Any other, Director DeFau?
And the thing that I took away from the Committee of the Whole was that even by your own admission that you would not be supportive of a pure policy governance model of board governance, because that would actually, in the extreme, be the directive to the superintendent, fulfill your duties without breaking the law, and we'll deal with policy. And I think I did hear you say at the meeting that that was not something that you would advocate for or endorse.
Yeah.
And so it becomes confusing to me because, as I said that night, I really do believe that we practice a hybrid model of board governance. You know, I don't sense that this board overextends itself frequently, though I would say that, as I said that night, we are passionate people that have strong opinions and are not afraid of expressing those opinions. And while this is a decision that isn't going to affect my tenure on the board, I don't believe. And so I don't know even if I should influence the decision.
I wish
because
you,
I'm
I
not
wish
gonna
you
be
would.
here. But by the same token, I just, you know, my glass isn't half empty right now. And, while I do think that we can always improve, I think you're starting from the standpoint that our system is flawed and that we have to somehow improve it. And I don't know that I am supportive of that opinion.
And I wanted to be clear, I mentioned it at the committee of the whole meeting, that there's nothing harmful in the way that we've been doing things since forever, but I think there could be a better way. And I think it's important to recognize that policy governance is not something that you add on to what we're doing now. It's a totally different envisioning. It's transformational. One of the main things is that our board pretty much looks inward to staff. Policy governance, on the other hand, looks outward to the values of the community and makes sure that we are tracking with what the community's values are. So that is a rather major difference in policy governance versus the way that we've done things. I mentioned the opportunities that we have to go out and sit with the Genesis board, with the Vera French board, to do things that are community directed, to find out with United Neighbors and Friendly House, to sit down with them and say, what can we do for our kids? Because we have, of course, a whole lot of horsepower in our administration that we pay an awful lot of money to make smart decisions. And my hope is that as a team, we could come together in a way that we've never done before and entrust our administration to make administrative decisions while we rise up to the top of that educational ship and start charting a course for the future, which we cannot do if we're down in the engine compartment. So I didn't say everything there is to be said about policy governance last Monday, but there is a total reorientation of how it is that the board views the world. And that, I think, is fundamentally different and something that we have not done. Now, we've done aspects of it, as you alluded to, with our visioning process. We opened that up to the public. Now, that was a policy governance kind of thing that we did. The things that Dr. Tate has done in terms of the Creative Arts Academy, the dual credit program, City High, those are policy governance moves that he made because he never got approval from the board to do those things. But he did them. I can't think of any superintendent that we've had prior to Dr. Tate that would have done that without consulting with the board. So you are correct. We have done some things that are policy oriented, but I want to make it clear that it is a total different orientation in terms of how the board would work. Now, I was speaking theoretically when I said all you tell the superintendent is that don't break the law. That was theoretical. I can't think of any board that would be satisfied with that level of freedom. And certainly, I think, as I've thought through it, I think initially a board that is doing traditional governance probably starts out fairly heavy-handed in terms of what they will tell the superintendent he can and can't do. But over time, as trust develops, I think that leverages over and you develop trust in a relationship that allows that superintendent to take on more responsibilities so that the board then can move on to the leadership issues, the value assessments of the community that they're supposed to be doing.
Any other discussion? I've got a whole page of notes here, and I don't know if I'll be able to recall what each of them means. Somebody asked about what this committee would do, and I was thinking about the work I do, and typically when I'm working with an organization, one of us has to prepare a scope of work, and then the other has to agree to it. And I thought about the committee as of the idea that the committee may prepare a scope of work kind of listing what it's going to do. In fact, I think it was Director Crumwoody that was asking about what's it really going to do. In my industry, that sure has helped keep things clear. I guess I'll start kind of from the backward. You talked about over time developing that sense of trust with the superintendent and being less heavy-handed. You said you may start out heavy-handed and give more as you develop that, as the board develops that trust. And I was thinking the difficulty, especially in superintendents, is that they are going to be here for a period of time, and then you're going to have a new superintendent. And that may be difficult. I don't think you could possibly have the same level of trust with a brand new superintendent that you may have developed with one over 3 or 5 years. I got to go back to a comment that Director DeFau made, and I didn't know if I interpreted it correctly, because Director DeFau said that I don't believe that this, meaning this ad hoc committee or its recommendations, would affect my tenure on the board. And I thought, did that mean that you might run next fall if if we voted yes or no?
No, it means that I won't be here to see it unfold.
All right. Well, I had to try. You know, I thought about your opening comments and the comment about the original board selecting Phoebe as a superintendent, and you went on to talk about it wasn't necessarily wrong, but I wondered, because I do sense that there's a predisposition to saying that traditional is wrong and policy governance is right. And so as I thought about the committee, and I thought I would hope that it, and in the scope of work, that it wouldn't say, for instance, our goal is to demonstrate the policy governance is right. It may be more to review various types of governance and then to give comparisons. And that's one thing that I wanted to be careful. And in those readings, that's one of the things that my sense was that the authors had this predisposition, and they used language that suggests that traditional is wrong and policy is right. And so I would hope that the committee, if it's formed, would have a more open outlook in governance and just try to figure out what's right. I want to address the IASB because the IASB, my understanding is that they have said that pure policy governance probably isn't right for school boards. At least they aren't recommending it in terms of the Carver model. And my understanding is that they have taken kind of a hybrid approach, that maybe there's something in between traditional and policy that would be the right answer. One of the other things I thought about in the idea of working with other organizations, and I think it's a good idea to work generally with other organizations. I think there just has to be a set of guidelines, for instance, that the board would set up so that the board makes sure that it doesn't start to allow the other organization, for instance, to use its priorities to get the board to establish or to change its priorities, if that makes any sense. I think that the board is focused on student achievement. Another board or another organization, say Genesis, may be much more focused on something other than student achievement. And they may be able to manipulate what we're doing. It's just a caution. I think that's all I've got. Is there any other discussion? Director Kluhl.
Oh, I jotted down your questions here. I'll quickly respond to them. The first one was the superintendent process, and you noted that if we develop policies that are oriented towards a growing relationship with the superintendent, we might get a new superintendent, and we're going to say, whoa, wait a minute, we're starting all over again. What happens, I think, with policy governance is that the board at the next selection process will look for a superintendent who lines up with policy governance. It'll be a different look, a different search, with a whole bunch of different venues in hand. So I think that there again, that's something that changes in the selection process. In terms of predisposition, do I think, again, that our traditional form is wrong? I don't. Some folks who are promoting policy governance might. But my predisposition is to say, well, what if? That's my predisposition. In terms of the ad hoc committee and what they will do, I just wanted to make it clear on behalf of the board so that the board understands that these are the general directions that the ad hoc committee might have. I think the ad hoc committee needs to sit down initially and talk about what it is that they need to do and have a conversation with the board about that to make sure that we're tuned. But for the benefit of this vote, I wanted to put some things out there. ISB says no to pure policy governance. That is true, but I think we need to look beyond our own borders. If you Google who's using policy governance, you'll see that nationwide, especially on the coast, people are adopting it. I shared something with Director Dickman earlier about the preponderance of bubble testing and the move away from No Child Left Behind Act, which is happening on a national level. But for the most part, these approaches are starting on the coast and moving inward, but there's no reason that we can't take strides in terms of leadership. Just because we're in Iowa doesn't mean that we're back on the back 40 with a piece of straw between our teeth. Or other organizations, if we were to work with them, may try to manipulate us. We certainly would manipulate any organization that we talk to in terms of kids being the most important resource there is in the world. So I think that's a risk that we take. And someday, you could be president of the United States in America, but you know what? That's a risk you take. You live in America, right?
Student board members, do you have anything to add? No? All right. Any more discussion? Director Dickman, you've been writing a lot. Do you have anything to say?
Mary
ahead.
didn't put the board requests out earlier.
Oh. Okay. Any other discussion? All right, we'll call for the vote. Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Dickman.
Yes.
Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director DeFau.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. And
Yes.
I don't recall when our next regular meeting is. I think it's on the 23rd, if I remember. Is that correct?
22nd.
So what I'd like to do is to appoint members to this ad hoc committee. If any board members are interested, please let our secretary know, and we'll make a selection of that committee on the 23rd. Okay, thank you very much. We'll move to discussion items. Superintendent Tate, literacy resources.
Thank you, Mr. President. A while back, the Agenda Committee and I made an agreement that we would bring literacy issues up before the board frequently so that we could have a mutual understanding of issues and direction for the board. And tonight we have another presentation. So Julie et al., thank you for being here, and you got it.
Okay, tonight we're here to talk about the resources that we have allocated in the district to support our literacy initiatives. And so you'll see that we really do have quite a few points that are all going toward that same common goal. The first thing we want to talk about is that we are going to be in an elementary curriculum adoption phase for reading, and that what we are going to propose as a literacy committee at the district level is that we have one adoption that spans all of our buildings, but because we know different students in different buildings have different needs, that there will also be alternate core adoptions that will supplement the core. And so students that need extra support or that are even in the area of especially high level readers, that there will be curriculum common across the district that will support their needs. And so also that this type of an adoption will help us to all be focused in on the same curriculum, and students moving from building to building will have the same strategies and a whole resource of things that'll be available to meet their needs. So now we're going to go into starting with the elementary language arts core resources, and I have one of our specialists here tonight, Beth Evans, who's going to talk about that.
Hi, I'm going to talk a little bit about the resources that we would consider our core resources in elementary, and then some of our supplemental resources as well. So what's on the screen for you right now kind of outlines what is used as the primary core resource in all of our elementary buildings. We have 19 buildings that have elementary classrooms. 2 of those buildings are K-8 buildings, but I'm going to include them in our K-5 curriculum resources here. So 84% of our elementary buildings use the 2007 copyright of Treasures to deliver their core instruction. We have 11% of our buildings using Reading Mastery. One of them just started using Reading Mastery this past school year, so we've had one that's been doing it for quite a few years and then one that is just new. And those are both using the signature edition of Reading Mastery. And then we have one building out there that is currently using SFA resources, so they're using Reading Roots and Reading Wings to deliver their core instruction. So in addition to the core resources, we do have one elementary building that when data was analyzed at the beginning of last school year, we identified that some of those students were not making growth like we would have expected. And so they have alternate core also in that building. So that is not the same as the supplemental core pieces that we've put in other buildings. This is actually one grade level, or one section at each grade level has an alternate core. And so in K3, even though that is a Treasures building, in K3 they have one section of Reading Mastery in each one of those grade levels, and then in 4 or 5 they have Language Exclamation for one section. Okay, so we did identify that there were some areas that our core programs were not quite hitting the mark. So we have some supplemental resources that the district provides. So these were purchased by the district and training is provided by the district. We have coaching personnel that go out and they actually support all of these resources. So they are listed for you there. I know that the board has heard quite a bit about our 95% group resources that we've implemented. We also have Handwriting Without Tears, and then new this year is the newest version of Lexia Core 5. Buildings do have additional funding at times that they use to purchase other materials or resources, but these are the ones that we are able to support them with training and ongoing professional development on. So this is what it looks like by grade level, so those resources that I mentioned. And I just can kind of give you a very quick breakdown of what that looks like in minutes in the school day. So that first column is the grade level, of course, and then next to it, those are our 95% group resources that we implement. Those are to supplement our phonemic awareness, our phonics instruction. And those resources take anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes of their core instruction each day. Handwriting Without Tears is actually a K3 program, so we only use that in K3, and in 4th and 5th grade they reference the formation of the letters, so they do have like alphabet strips, so the students can use those to reference like their cursive letters and things, but there's not traditional instruction that goes along with that. The handwriting without tears takes about 15 minutes of instruction each day. And then Lexia Core 5, that is that farthest column on the right there. And Lexia Core 5, it varies by student. Lexia is a computer program, and so each student gets their own prescription of intensity, and that is based on where they test into the program and how they are working through the program. The maximum amount of minutes per week for any student in Lexia that gets prescribed is 80 minutes. So if we break that into 20-minute sessions, we're not expecting the students to be on the computer for a half hour at a time or 45 minutes at a time during the school day, but it can be used from home if they have computers at home.
Now we're going to look at the secondary level, and Michelle Stevens is here, who's also one of our specialists, to talk about our resources that we've put into place at the secondary level.
And I'll just correct and say it's Michelle Harvey now.
Oh, that's right.
For the intermediate language arts core curriculum, 5 of our 6 intermediate buildings are using Treasures as their 6th grade core language arts resource. And they actually spend 2 periods of the day for 6th grade language arts. And then 6 of our 6 intermediate buildings use the McDougall-Littell Literature 2008 copyright for 7th and 8th grade core language arts resource. And for those 7th and 8th grade classes, language arts, it is 45 minutes. I do not have a slide for you regarding the high school resources with all the different classes that exist at the high school level. To list those out one by one would drown you in information. So we just focus really on intermediate. Currently at our intermediate buildings, we do have some supplemental resources as well, including Read 180 from Scholastic, as well as the 95% group multisyllable routine cards, which Beth has referenced. Right now, the secondary literacy, or the literacy committee, is starting the process of forming a secondary literacy plan. So there will be more information regarding secondary literacy. I believe in April we are back to talk to you about that. So there will be more information coming. Right now it's not a ton because we've spent a lot of our time the past few years focused on elementary literacy. So now we're moving on to secondary and how to support our students at all levels there. I'll get back to Julie.
Another area of resources that the district utilizes is our universal screening and diagnostic assessments. As you know, we've been using DIBELS for K through 5, and with a team that's been working all year to study universal screeners and to look at what's out there, we have decided that next year we'll be going K through 8 with the FAST system, which is supported by the state. We are currently this year beginning with kindergarten and using that assessment it began in January, so that we can really get used to the assessment and how to administer it and the technology that's involved in it. We also have a large number of diagnostic assessments that we utilize throughout the district, and those are really based on the needs of the student, so that if we see an area that is specific of need for a student, then there's diagnostic assessments that we give so that we can pinpoint where that area of need is. Another component of our resources is our multi-tiered system of support. We used to call that our TI, and what that is that we've got universal screeners and diagnostic assessments, and then when we figure out what level the student is at, then they're in a 30-minute Tier 2 reading intervention. And then if we find out during that reading intervention that additional support is needed, that then the student is placed into a Tier 3 group for an additional 30 minutes based upon their diagnostic assessment, so that we can really focus on that area of need. So Beth's going to talk about staffing and professional development.
So I gave you a quick overview of the different resources that we have, and then this would be the staffing that we use to support those district resources. So as of right now, every one of our elementary buildings has a minimum of a 0.5 FTE assigned to them as a reading instruction coach. If they are a wraparound building, they do have a full-time reading instruction coach in that building. So the way that looks is that all the elementaries have a coach there half-time or full-time for wraparound. If they're half-time in the building, they're straddling 2 buildings. So that coach would have 2 buildings assigned to them. We do have 2 coaches that do cover K-8. So we have JB has the coach, and then Walcott has a half-time to cover K-8. And then we have 2 coaches that float between the other intermediate buildings. So we have coaches in all of our buildings, K-8 in some capacity or another. They're either full-time or half-time. Each building does have a reading intervention specialist as well, and that is a full-time reading intervention specialist in every building, and that would be to support those students that are in need of those Tier 3 services. The coach is there to support the core curriculum as well as to provide professional development in any of the areas that the building is noting need professional development, as well as the ones that the district has decided that we need to focus on, and we usually do that based on district data that we analyze at our coaching meetings. There is something new to the way, this is the second year having the reading instruction coaches and the reading intervention specialist positions, but this is new this year. Actually, as of just last month, the coaches are now partially funded out of special education. While the coaches weren't avoiding working with special ed teachers by any means, they didn't have a lot of the training for those special ed resources. Now that they're partially funded out of special ed, we're partnering with that department to get them the training on those resources so that they can support all of the teachers in our building. All right, so here are some of the things that we have provided professional development on. Letters, and I know that you've heard quite a bit about letters over the past couple years. So letters, all of our K-3 teachers have gone through letters training or are currently in letters training. And then all of our special education teachers have also attended letters training. We have 95% group. We still have ongoing coaching with 95% group. So the consultants come in 4 times a year for each building. We go into classrooms, we observe instruction, we provide feedback. We help the buildings analyze data, group students, and basically answer any questions, do modeling for them of lessons. I try to go out with the consultants as much as I can when they're here so that I can see what's going on in the buildings as well. We do get product training still from Treasures. We're quite far into our implementation. That was 2007 copyright. We're still getting ongoing support from McGraw-Hill. So we had them in just last year to work with our coaches to make sure that our coaches had the training to be able to train the teachers and to continually go in and model those lessons. Lexia is new, so we just did the training for Lexia this past fall, and we have ongoing data analysis for their consultants, and they're also slowly training our coaches to become trainers for Lexia so that they're able to train on those products and help the teachers understand the data pieces that are available. The same we've used Read 180 for quite a while now, but we have Sherry Wilson who can help train our coaches in all the components of Read 180 so that we know that that's being implemented correctly in our buildings. And then all of our universal screeners, the coaches are trainers of DIBELS, so they know how to provide that training to new teachers and ongoing refresher training for every teacher before every benchmark period. FAST is new for us. We're all becoming trainers in FAST right now, all of the coaches, and we're slowly training the kindergarten teachers in FAST as well. And then SRI we've been using for quite a while. That's the Scholastic Reading Inventory, and the coaches have been trained, well trained in that, so they know what to help the teachers, just some general assessment guidelines for them, as well as going through the reports, monitoring students during testing. But we do all of those assessment pieces prior to every benchmark. We do refreshers with the teachers to make sure that they know the expectations and that they are comfortable administering them and using the data from them. Okay.
So this is where we're heading. We're putting a lot of effort and time into making sure that our elementary reading adoption is the right one for the district. We also have committee that's formed in order to look at the alternate core. And then we have a secondary literacy committee that's meeting to discuss what additional resources we want to put into our secondary schools. When we first started with the elementary, a lot of time and effort and financial assistance went into that. And so this secondary literacy committee will be looking at those same types of resources for the secondary schools. So if you have any questions, we're here to answer those.
Great. Any questions, comments? Director Dickman.
I'm curious about the new FAST assessment. I saw a small presentation of what the state was considering. So is the FAST assessment moving away from the multiple choice?
We're going to let Beth talk about that.
FAST actually has a few different assessment options. The A reading assessment in FAST is a computer adaptive assessment, and that does have multiple choice in it. It is taken obviously on the computer, but the students are presented with multiple choice prompts there, as well as some where it might say, I'm thinking concepts of print, because that's what we just focused on. So there's not multiple choice, but it'll have a word on the screen, and they'll have to touch the first letter in the word or the last letter in the word. So they have multiple options there, but they do have, most of it is structured with typical A, B, C, D.
Okay.
But that's just the A reading. They also have curriculum-based measures, very similar to DIBELS and AIMSweb. So we have those as options as well, and those aren't multiple choice. Those are timed or untimed probes that teachers use in their specific measures.
Okay. And then also, a lot of this, we've done a really great job at making sure that students aren't falling through the cracks. I'm curious, and I'm wondering if maybe our student board members will talk about getting stuck at the ceiling, you know, if they're bored, if they've kind of reached the top of what's provided in the curriculum, and they're bored sitting at the top. And these are very bright students, and I wonder if they've ever encountered that where they're sitting. I'm trying not to put you on the spot too badly, but
yes, that has definitely happened before, not just in reading, but in like math and arts and everything.
so do you know if we have anything that
Then I definitely think the whole adaptiveness to different skill sets is a vital part of all of this.
Okay. Do you think that we're still running into, especially, you know, in the reading level? I know Reading Mastery is very good about addressing students that are past the top tier, so to speak. Do any of these other curriculums have specific instructions for students that are at that level?
We do. If you look at our Treasures program, it has the 3 different levels within it. So it has approaching, on, and beyond. And it's just to kind of push those students who are above grade level expectation. But part of our MTSS system, we do have that tier 2. We've gone to a district-wide tier 2 time. And during those 30 minutes, if a student doesn't need an intervention, they're actually getting some form of enrichment or extension.
Okay.
So we're working to fill those deficits, but we're also trying to keep pushing those other students forward as well.
Okay. And then last question, the Lexia 5?
Core 5?
Is that, so you mentioned a certain number of amount of time that it, so is it possible then that a student would kind of max out on that, or are they able to repeat lessons?
So the way it works is that a student is prescribed an intensity based on how far off from grade level they are. So I can use my daughter as an example. She's prescribed 20 minutes a week on Lexia as a kindergartner. She goes beyond the 20 minutes. If the other kids are on Lexia, she's also on Lexia at school. But she goes beyond those 20 minutes, but she just keeps moving forward in the program. Okay. And it's built for K-5, so the end of 5th grade. So as a kindergartner, she's working on end of kindergarten skills right now in Lexia. And so she would just continue moving forward with that. It can happen that we would have 5th graders who would kind of, they're going to max out, some of them early on in 5th grade, maybe middle of the year, and some might hit it right on the mark at the end of 5th grade.
Okay.
But they can, I've gone in and looked at the data, and we have students, if they're using it at school and at home, they're spending 200 minutes on Lexia a week. but it's because they enjoy it. And
Okay.
we don't want to discourage that. We just want to watch for, are the students continually progressing in Lexio? Are they hitting skills that they can't pass and they just keep trying over and over and not getting any further? So there's ways to look at the data.
Thank you.
Director Crumwoody.
Thank you. First of all, thanks to all three of you. I do have some questions, and I'm recalling just a few weeks ago we had, I think it was Julie talking, and I don't know if all three of you were here or not, but I also remember the same evening we had Wilson School present. Wilson School presented on reading mastery, and what a successful program that was for Wilson. And I know that Madison has had that for a number of years. I'm curious now with the new adoption, and I think you started out saying you would have an alternative curriculum for everyone in a building and a consistent curriculum for all the rest of the students. Is that correct? Is that what I heard?
That would be the goal. When we looked at the needs of the students, even within a building, you had students that were going to be successful with the same curriculum that we use across the district, like Treasures. Then you had some students that were actually going to need something different. Treasures wasn't meeting their needs.
Okay.
So kind of what we've done at Monroe with the alternate core, one section at each grade level, would kind of be the model we would want to look at.
But it would be consistent across the district.
The alternate core used across the district would be consistent.
Okay. So my question is this. Now that Wilson has just started reading mastery, Madison is using reading mastery, could it be that there would no longer be reading mastery in those buildings if you adopt a different alternative core?
It would definitely be a discussion. And it might be that if reading mastery happened to be the alternate core, it might be that they would have both then. They would have something that meets the needs of a majority of their kids, but reading mastery might be what those other kids need.
Okay.
So I think that's still discussion to happen.
Whatever this adoption looks like, we feel that it's important that we offer these resources across the district. Currently, the buildings that are able to put in programs like reading mastery as an alternate core or even as their core are using some funds that building has available. And so we want to make sure that all buildings have the same resources available. If it's good for one, and then as far as moving students, then we think that that'll help too.
Well, I really appreciate that because I've been concerned about the lack of consistency and with the mobility that we have in our community, that we have that consistency throughout the district. In looking at new curriculum, is Treasures being reconsidered?
There is not a current Treasures copyright. Their last one was a 2011 copyright. They do have a new program out that McGraw-Hill has out that they said would be considered the new version of Treasures. It's called Wonders. Bettendorf just recently adopted Wonders.
Okay.
So the 2011 would be the most recent Treasures copyright we could look at.
Okay. I'm just concerned about, I remember when we put in Treasures not long ago, and it's like all the staff development that we do with a reading program, with a new adoption, and spend all this time and effort, and teachers have to learn all this, and now we're going to turn around and say, well, now it's time for a new adoption.
We 10 years in with Treasures now?
Yeah.
10 years, yeah.
And there was a big difference when we adopted Treasures because we were using a whole different system at that time for teaching reading. So there was a lot of PD that had to go on in order to get teachers used to that style of teaching, which when you look at the adoptions that are out there now for a core, a lot of those strategies are the same. The one thing that we've seen in looking at preliminary looks at adoptions that are available is that they're much more rigorous than what our current Treasures is. So they've really amped it up in order to meet the core standards.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the idea of having an alternative curriculum because right now, I just had a conversation the other day with one of the people on the preschool committee who expressed a concern about special education students and having to deal with the Treasures program, where a more direct instruction might be more appropriate. So hopefully that can be worked out, and I hope we do have that consistency. So then that leads me to what we talked about not long ago also with the new law and the mandate, because we are going to have to remediate in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
So we would be consistent then in using those programs in our academy. Is that what you're thinking? Or whatever we want to call it?
I think that we would definitely look, some of them do actually have summer components built in, so as we look at new curriculums, we would definitely want to take into account ones that have additional pieces that continue their instruction throughout the summer for the students who need that. At this point, we are using the Treasures summer curriculum, in addition to 95% group resources to fill the skill deficits for our students. But yeah, we will continue to build that summer school curriculum.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Oh, excuse me.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Preschool, because I understand that we have the Treasures program in our preschools.
Mm-hmm.
Will that continue? Because you're talking about starting in kindergarten here, but will we also have that reading curriculum available for preschool, for 4-year-olds especially?
The funding for that was at a different level, and so that discussion has to take place. But yes, we'll definitely be including them in the conversations about what to do at the preschool level.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Director Kluhl.
I'm curious, is there more state oversight with FAST than there was with DIBELS?
No, not state oversight. There's more state support because that is the assessment system that the state has been promoting. So we definitely would receive more support from the state. Both of them, like DIBELS and FAST, both go into this tiered system that we're able to pull data, and the state is able to pull data in a seamless fashion. The difference between these two is in FAST, it goes in automatically, and in DIBELS, we have to put it in. So when we did a very comprehensive study to make this decision, and that was one of the reasons why the FAST system, just one of the reasons that the FAST system was chosen, was the state support.
So we needed more hardware support with FAST than we had with DIBELS, is that correct?
We will need more hardware only because we're now going to go K-5, and we're also going to be not only looking at reading, but also math.
Okay.
And we have not had an elementary K through 2 math universal screening tool that's been consistently used. And we have used the SRI for math in 3rd through 5th grade, but we'll be moving away from that and going towards FAST.
So in your view of things, I mean, I agree with Director Crumwoody in terms of standardization. I think it's important with mobility, as you mentioned. But I'm thinking about the alternate core classrooms, and those classrooms going to be smaller? Because one of the things that we talked about at the early childhood retreat was if we could just do direct instruction with these kids who need help.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, once you start to talk of the cost of trying to do something like that, it becomes quite high. But I'm wondering, are the alternate core classrooms going to be smaller?
That has not been discussed at Monroe.
They are smaller at Monroe.
Mm-hmm.
Giving more of a chance to do that
Mm-hmm.
direct approach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, as much as I kind of rail against standardization and one size fits all, it still seems that this standardization is probably for the best for our kids. Now, Will, you said that some of the alternate cores that the schools purchase with their own money, will they still have access to those? Will they still, in your vision, have access to those?
When we first started with Treasures, there were exceptions. So Madison was allowed to keep their reading mastery, and Jefferson was completely separate. But what we said when we did that was we're all going in this together, and then as time went on, then that's where they started to supplement the core. What we want to do is make sure that we're giving our adoption level playing field, and that we're really putting all of our energy into that adoption. So we will begin that process by getting everybody on the same playing field. And then as time goes on, if we were to see, and hopefully we don't see this, but if there are supplements that are needed, perhaps we can look at them that they're needed across the district, or they're needed because of this is a high need school. But that we do a much better job of being consistent across the district with those resources.
Well, it's a bit of an adoptive process then as
Yes.
you go through it.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? I've got a couple of just concerns, I guess. So when you used the word core several times in the presentation, is that somehow related to either the Common Core or to the Iowa Core?
Yes.
Which
the-
is it related to?
The Iowa Core and the Common Core are almost identical. What happened with the adoption of the core standards was there were national core standards, and then Iowa adopted those, and they were allowed to add on a certain percentage of additional standards, which Iowa did. So your textbooks that are now, your curriculums that are coming out at this time are all based on that Common Core. So any adoption that we make, they'll be focused on the standards of the core.
The reason I ask is that people ask me about the Common Core, the Iowa Core, and now I've got the primary core and the alternate core also to talk about. And I'm thinking that maybe we have to be careful and you've talked a lot about consistency also. And I've been thinking maybe we should be really, really consistent in our language. I don't really care what it is, but right now people are asking me about Common Core and Iowa Core. Mm-hmm. And those terms weren't used at all in the presentation. And so that's why I don't know what the right answer is. I just want to express a concern about that. The handwriting without tears, does that teach handwriting?
It does. It begins in kindergarten, and it teaches the formation of letters so that the students have a consistent way to form their letters. And then it moves into, by third grade, it's actually teaching cursive handwriting.
Okay, that's great. I get questions about that also. I didn't know that. The FAST, you said it's supported by the state, but is it aligned with the curriculum?
The FAST is aligned with the core, so that's what it's assessing, is the phonological awareness.
The foundational skills.
Yes. And
in
so
the Common Core.
Mhm. That's what you're assessing when you give the FAST.
So if FAST only, but if the FAST only assesses the Common Core, what about the additional 15% or whatever it is that you've added in as the Iowa Core? How do you assess? Do you assess that with a different assessment tool?
The FAST is really only focusing on, at least at the kindergarten level, what we've adopted at this point is focusing on the foundational skills, which is just a small portion of the Common Core. There are still other skills. When we get into A reading and it goes, it's option to go K-12, it does bring in comprehension things that align to the Common Core, vocabulary that aligns to the Common Core as well. So in kindergarten FAST, they're not doing a lot that's getting to the what we would consider like traditional nonfiction and fiction standards. They're really focused on the foundational skills, concepts of print, and those things. So it is a universal screener.
Okay.
And as far as a universal screener goes, it doesn't focus, it does not assess all of the components that a reading program would have, but that's where we have our benchmark assessments that are part of our adoption, that are a part of our treasures that we monitor, and that's how we get at those other components of reading.
Beth, I think you said that the last 30 minutes of Lexia 5 can be enrichment or extension. Is that right?
No, in the Tier 2 system, those 30 minutes for students who don't need intervention, that 30 minutes is their enrichment or their extension.
Is the enrichment or extension, is it some sort of differentiated instruction, or is it independent? How does that work?
It is differentiated instruction, so they're usually working, depends who they're working with in that building, but a lot of times they are working on possibly a theme that was part of maybe their reading series, and they're going out and they might be doing additional research on it, they might be creating presentations on it, they're doing some type of extension from their learning.
Okay.
They're not generally working independently on things, there is still a lesson and a structure that goes with it.
So when Bennett and Mitchell said that they got bored, is that something that you would imagine would not happen with this whole approach that you're taking?
We would hope, at least for those 30 minutes, that they are not getting bored. This is new. I mean, we are just getting into this Tier 2, but
okay.
I'm gonna keep holding on to that hope there.
Okay. Well, and I'm sure with all of your leadership that they will not be bored. My last question for all of you, but I'd like probably to ask Michelle first, then Beth, and then Julie. Are you passionately supportive of everything that you've talked about here?
Well, obviously I didn't talk about a ton, but yes. And also with, we said 5 of the 6 intermediates are using the same 6th grade curriculum. That's been a really big, I'd say, passion then for not just the intermediate principals and myself, but also the teachers to have everybody consistently doing the same thing because of the mobility of students. That's been a big, thing we face at the secondary level is there's a lot more mobility there seems to be with students. And so we want there to be that consistency when a kid goes from one room to the next, but also one building to the next. So getting them the support no matter what building they are at is what's really important. I guess I came from secondary, so I guess that would be why I would see it. Being at the high school, where there is open enrollment, I do feel like you see it a lot. And just working with my intermediate teachers for curriculum writing, every time that they come in for curriculum writing, they're referencing more students coming or going and being at a different building. So it does seem to be a thing that we face a lot. So having the consistency in curriculum and resources is really important for that purpose.
Very, very passionate. I'm actually a graduate of Davenport Schools, so very, very committed to Davenport Schools. I have 2 children of my own in Davenport, so everything that we're doing now is going to impact my children. So every day I think about that. Everything that everything I'm learning at work, 'cause I'm constantly learning as well. So every time I'm learning something new, my poor daughter gets to hear about it, and I get to practice these things with her all the time. And sometimes she just says, "Mommy, we're just going to read the book tonight. We're not going to talk about it." And so I just laugh. I'm like, that is it. It just trickles into my home. My husband's constantly telling me, he's like, "You were in training today, weren't you?" When I'm talking about, hey, we got to get more vocabulary into these kids. We have to talk to them all through dinner. He's like, they need to eat. They have to chew at some point. So yes, 100% passionate. I love the people that I get to work with, the coaches. Every day it's a new adventure for us. We are trying so many things, and we've got so many things going that every day is new. So.
That's great. Thank you.
And finally, yes, I'm extremely committed to this. I really love the team that we put together. I am so excited about the work that we're doing with special education and the blending of our conversations, because they bring so many valuable ideas to the table, and we've just feel right now that we've opened up a whole new realm in where we're going. And so this whole alternate core idea and the consistency across the district, and making sure that all of our buildings have the same access to resources is really exciting for me. So yes, I think we're at a really cool place in our history.
Well, thank you for those comments. I have to say that it sounds like you three have fantastic jobs that you look forward to going to every day. And sometimes people think that there's something wrong with me because I like Mondays because they're exciting. But I'm going to reference you three when people say that to me, that I know 3 other people that enjoy their jobs immensely.
I think we really like working together. It's awesome to be able to be on the same page and to talk the stuff that you really love.
Okay, thank you. Director Crumwitty.
Just a couple more questions. Some other questions brought this to my attention. We talked about the FAST system, and I'm somewhat familiar with DIBELS and how we assess students with the DIBELS system, and that we even employed some part-time people to come in and do those assessments. Now, with the FAST system, if I understand it right, it's all on computer.
Yes.
So, are we saying that a kindergarten child will self-assess with a computer?
In A reading, kindergartners do sit at the computer and take the assessment. A reading is not allowed in the fall, and that's because kindergartners don't know how to use a computer, and their arm goes this way when they're trying to use that mouse. So fall can't do it with kindergartners. They can start using A reading come January for that winter benchmark period. But they do also have the early reading and the curriculum-based measures like DIBELS, and the scoring is done with the computer. So the teacher scores it with the computer or a tablet or some type of electronic device. The student still has print in front of them. So they have both
is the teacher
measures.
there to monitor them while they're
On
doing
A
the
reading?
assessment?
Yes. Somebody is standing
We'll
there.
still have people like we do with DIBELS work with those individual students?
On A reading, we would have people definitely watching to see that the students are listening to the prompts before clicking.
Okay.
And then with the CBM measures, it's still one-on-one for those ones. They still put the print in front of the student, and they still record everything the student says using the computer
I'm
program.
glad to hear that, because I'm just sitting here trying to envision a 5-year-old self-assessing.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the reading interventionists a lot, and those positions have changed from reading specialists. How is that different?
The reading specialists were really kind of the jack of all trades. They did a little bit of PD. Sometimes they were lucky enough to work with a group of students if they had time available in their day. They became material managers in some buildings. And so the position changes. We had the coach who focused on the PD piece now. And then we have those intervention specialists, and their days are a schedule of seeing students. So we're using their expertise to deliver instruction to the most needy students in the building.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? All right. Well, thank you, Julie, Michelle, and Beth. Great presentation. All right. I will call a 5-minute recess. We've had a little bit of time here, and we'll finish up our discussion on budget when we return. We'll go ahead and resume our meeting. Superintendent Tate.
Pass this down. Well, we've had some very motivating and interesting discussions and recognitions tonight, and now I get to talk about the budget. We've lost our crowd. We've lost the media. This is one thing I want the media to know about, so we're going to make sure that they get a briefing on it. I'm going to give you an update on our budget situation, the best that we know it, and provide to you a recommendation different from the one that I did several months ago. I gave you a 3-year plan, and I've just provided you information for a 2-year plan. Our goal is to have at least $5 million of unspent balance or budget authority by July of 2017. We had set a $8 million by July of 2018, so I've modified that to accommodate this 2-year plan, which would put us on that track. The assumptions are that we'll get at least a 1.25 next school year and a 2.45 state supplemental aid the following year. I can't imagine going any lower than that, and we know that there's legislation right now to increase it, but I'm basing what I'm providing you tonight on the 1.25 and 2.45. We still have the assumption of losing 75 students each year for the next, I should say, 2 years, and our health insurance costs with a 0 increase, at least for next year. I want to reiterate our philosophical approach that we want to try to avoid giving pink slips to employees. We want to certainly avoid having to fire any employees, and to keep our reduction as far away from the classroom as possible. So the next page is a revised first-year plan, which would be next school year 2015-16, where if we have a 1.25 increase, we'll need to find fund reductions for $3.5 million. So this is the latest. I asked our Chief Financial Officer to update our carryovers and any other thing we knew about our finances at this point. So the best guess is we need about $3.5 million. And I've got on this list the same things which I had recommended for reductions, early retirement. The news there is we were hoping for, we projected 60, and we got 37. So rather than the 1.5 million that we projected, it's 836 million. And I still have on the list the reduction of teacher positions at high school, intermediate, and elementary by increasing class size slightly, reduction of department budgets, administrative reductions by attrition, eliminated administrator annuity for new hires, eliminated to instructional coaches or reading interventionists. We have utility savings and curtailing professional development. And those total savings are now, with the adjustment on the early retirement, $3,181,000. And we need 3.5 million. So we have to find additional reductions for next year with the assumptions that I just discussed of $319,000. So there are some possibilities, and I'd like Marcia to talk about those two for us.
The first one should say maintenance contracts, and that it goes from the general fund to the management fund. And what that's based on is there is a new program called the Equipment Breakdown Insurance Program, where we can pay for maintenance contracts and basically any type of maintenance on anything basically that plugs in through our management fund, through a new insurance program that they have, rather than the general fund. And so we're going to start by looking at all of our copier contracts, because they all come up in the fall. And so when we do an RFP for those contracts, it will be for the machine only. And any maintenance agreement that we would normally get, we will now service through the management fund. And so we hope that once we start this program, that we will continue to move expenses from the general fund to the management fund. So there will be ongoing savings, but we're going to start it out slow by just looking at the maintenance contracts for our copiers. And then the second item was to lower the retirement incentive to 20 years, and we estimate that we could pick up some additional folks by doing that with an additional savings of $440,000.
And in order to do that, we know that we have had legal guidance that if we change the provisions of our early retirement, which that would be a change from 25 to 20, that we need to get the approval with a letter of agreement from all the unions, the associations which participate. So we're working with that right now. We've had discussions, and I will be able to know by tomorrow afternoon who is on board and who is not. This mainly needs to be teachers. We think that we have an agreement with them, but we still need to get the signed MOU, in which case I might have to ask the president to call a special meeting of the board so that you can approve it, so we can announce it, so we can get people to apply, so we can count on this money. It's got to be a pretty fast-moving thing. But we believe from what people have said that it probably would be 20 more people. Now, the only thing we'll be changing is the number of years, not the amount of money they would be receiving. So I would stop there before going to the next year to see what questions you might have about the estimates that we've put together, the first year draft recommendations, and the lowering retirement the incentive.
Anybody? Director Crumity.
Yeah, I had asked this question one other time. It was my understanding that if we do change that retirement incentive, that then becomes a negotiated item with all
It
the
is,
contracts?
but if they give us an MOU, that we've essentially done the negotiation, they've agreed to do it. So we've been in contact with all the groups so far.
So it would only be for this one time then?
Would it be just one time? Yes.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Anybody else? Director DeFau.
And looking at the administrative reduction by attrition and looking at note 1, are you saying that you're looking at 4 positions, or are you looking at 1 high school associate principal per building? If you can just clarify that a little bit.
Since we don't know who's going to retire, we're not sure which opportunity may come forward. So all this reflects is that when an opportunity comes forth, and it gives us a possibility of combining school leadership or associate principals. So I would reserve, we do know of some retirements already, but I'd want to see who else might come forward. And then in that, we would just have to somehow find savings. So I don't want to preordain what it might be, because it may not be this opportunity this year. It's just these are the sort of things that we'd look for.
So if you do not anticipate one of these positions coming open in this upcoming school year, how do you plug that hole of $125,000 that you have built into your budget reductions?
We already know of people who are retiring that give us this opportunity. I just haven't decided what's the best way to approach it. So we already know we have that.
Okay.
Anything else? Director Dickman.
The eliminating the administrator annuity for new hires. My understanding on that from an earlier conversation was that if we completely eliminated the annuity for all administrators, that would be around $500,000.
I can't remember the exact amount, but it would be a substantial number.
If we're trying to keep cuts away from the classroom, at least we should at least move the money that we're giving those people into the public eye so that the public can see how much administrators are getting. And I do think that we should consider eliminating not just for the new hires, but asking the administrators who are at the top of the pay scale to accept a cut by not getting that annuity anymore. Also, the instructional coach positions and reading interventionist positions. We just heard about how much difference those make for our most needy students. I would much rather see, I know they're not paid anywhere near as much, but some of the bonuses for coaches to be reduced instead of for athletic coaches instead of instructional coaches and reading interventionists.
Director Kluhl.
In the assumptions, I thought we had anticipated an increase in health insurance cost due to Affordable Health Care Act.
We do have some fees that have come up through the Affordable Health Care Act, but our self-insurance fund balance is at such a state that in talking with our insurance consultant, we didn't feel the need that we had to pass on those increased costs to any of our employees, that we'll be able to absorb it within the fund balance that we have.
Okay.
Director Defoe.
I'm unclear as to Director Dickman's reference to coach bonuses. Are you talking about supplemental contracts?
Yes, for the amount that we pay teachers on top of their base salary to coach sports. While sports are definitely important and they can motivate students to do academic work to stay in good standing, I would not consider that to be in classroom essential learning.
I don't think then that you've really had an experience of what it means for a student to participate in a sport, because the teamwork, the responsibility, the cooperation, the requirement to commit yourself and to follow through. I mean, those are all, we talk about those soft skills that are so important in the classrooms I've heard you speak about quite frequently. Those are all skills that are definitely taught through participation in athletics, in show choir, in band, in orchestra, all of which those teachers can receive supplemental contracts. They are certainly educators, not simply coaches, and when they're expending significant amounts of additional time with our students, providing that leadership and that role modeling to them, to suggest that they do that without additional pay is just something that I couldn't be supportive of.
Well, I certainly appreciate your comments, and I agree that they are the soft skills that you're mentioning. I don't feel that the school district that it is their primary responsibility. I feel that that's a community. I know I'm alone in that position, but I don't think that we disagree on the importance of the skills that they're learning, or that the job is important. I just don't necessarily agree that that burden should fall onto the district. And I also had forgotten, I put in a request about it. Something that a candidate for Director Sherwood's vacancy suggested was that many students are not taking advantage, especially at the upper grade levels, are not taking advantage of the busing. And so if we are able to reduce our busing need, that would solve a few of our problems. So I would like us to look into that, into providing the minimum legal requirement and working with the cities to fill that gap.
Director Cromedy.
Concerning the supplemental contracts, Deb or Marcia, those are negotiated, correct? So that's part of the negotiated contract. So it's not a matter of just saying we're not going to have them any longer, that we'd have to negotiate that with the teachers union. It's my understanding. I'd also like, as far as the administrator of annuity, and maybe it's Deb or Marcia, I'm not sure, or Art, whoever, to explain why that even happened. Why do administrators receive that annuity? How did that begin?
Well, I can address how it began. It was the superintendent at the time wanted to give a percentage increase to the administrators, but realized by putting some money in an annuity, it was actually a savings to the district because you wouldn't have to pay taxes on that amount. So in giving the administrators, for instance, a 3% increase in the package, 0.5% of that went into an annuity, and so the district was able to save the taxes on that. And then every year, as the packages were negotiated, more and more every year, another 0.5% or so went into an annuity in lieu of salary, to where it got to the point where it got to 9%, and then they decided that that was all that they were going to do, and then they just negotiated the dollars into salary instead of going into an annuity.
So instead of giving a salary increase to these administrators by placing that money into an annuity, it's actually a better deal for the district. Is that correct?
Any additional discussion? I had a couple things. One is on assumption number 3, the 0% will increase 0% due to the Affordable Care Act. And what I understood was that the increase of 0% was really more to our reserves than to the effect of the Affordable Care Act, right? I mean,
That's correct. There were increases in the Affordable Health Care Act through fees, but we didn't pass those along because of the balance in our self-insurance fund.
I understand. I just think the credit should be given to the district and not to the Affordable Care
That would be
Act.
correct.
And so if I recall right, we have like 24 million in that account. Is that rough numbers? Is that
Actually, in excess of 30 million.
30 million? And how much, I mean, the fees are going to change every year, but for this next year, what's it going to cost that fund, rough numbers, to get back to zero? I mean, is it $1 million? Is it?
As to how much the fees are?
Well, yeah, basically, how much are we going to take out of the fund to make this zero?
If I can remember correctly, it's like $8 for an employee who has family insurance every month, and roughly $3 or $4 for the employees that have single.
Oh, so it's insignificant.
Exactly.
Okay, great, thank you. I was trying to recall a presentation that I don't remember if it was Larry Sigel that made it. It was quite some time ago, and I was remembering a chart up in the upper right-hand corner of his presentation. And it talked about if we don't do some of these things, we're going to be within 200,000 of. And I couldn't remember what the of was. And I didn't know if it was going in the red or, but I couldn't remember either which year it was, whether it's next year or the year after. Can you just tell me, if we're going after 3.5 million, are we still going to be good next year?
We will still have a balance in our spending authority. And I do believe it was Larry, and he gave you several charts, and one of them was if we didn't make any more budget reductions, when would we use up our spending authority? And for instance, if you didn't do the $3.5 million in reductions, you're probably going to come within a couple $100,000 of exceeding our spending authority.
So you're comfortable with 3.5 million. We'll be $3.3 million in the black anyway, right?
3.3 in the black.
If we were going to be 200,000 in the red.
Right.
Something like
right.
that.
Because we're bringing forward a balance. We currently have a balance in our spending authority.
Right, okay. One other thing I just want to mention to all of us as the board is that in some amount of time, we're going to have to certify the budget. And the budget is going to be a number that we certify. We're kind of getting into perhaps some management issues here. We're expressing our passions and our thoughts on all of this, but it's really the administration that will ultimately make these decisions. With us making this, we'll either approve a rate or we'll approve a number of dollars. I'm not sure how the motion will be made, but I just wanted to warn all of us because we do get wrapped up in this, and ultimately these will be administrative decisions. Any other discussion? Superintendent Tate.
Well, that was the good news. Next year, if we have a 2.45 increase in supplemental state aid, the general fund will need to be reduced by $5 million because, again, we're aiming towards the $8 million unspent balance. So I provided you what used to be year 2 of a 3-year plan, and now this is just year 2 of a 2-year plan that includes early retirement again, elimination of administrative annuities, big one, change from block to traditional, repurpose of school, we've got coaches and intervention, reductions, utility savings, increasing the transportation walk zones, increased school hours per day, and decrease in the number of days, administrative position reductions through attrition. And that came to about $3.3 million. So that doesn't near come to what we need in order to balance the budget. So I provided you a list I call additional budget reduction options for consideration. And this is not someone crying wolf. I've not put down there eliminate the football programs at the 3 high schools where many times you'll see us start. These are actual things which I have seen done in other districts, which we consider as things we need to think about no matter how onerous they are. And that is to have media specialists which are shared between schools, share nurses among schools, share counselors among schools, eliminate 7th grade sports, reduce or eliminate private music lessons at high school and intermediate levels, reduce the intermediate music programs at elementary schools, have athletics and marching band count as PE credit and thus eliminating some PE classes in 11th and 12th grade. Reduce the $50,000 general fund contribution to the TAG program. Eliminate an additional $350,000 contribution that we gave Jefferson. That's above and beyond the normal calculations that we do for our elementary schools. Eliminate the general fund contribution to the Creative Arts Academy. Reduce the ASC total salary and benefits by 25%, which will include administrators, administrative assistants, curriculum marketing, by eliminating positions and reducing the number of work days per year. If we don't get more money from the legislature, these are the things we will have to consider both in year 2 and in subsequent years. So again, if you thought year 1 was bad, year 2 and 3 is going to be worse.
Any discussion? Director Cluel.
Well, I heard a gut reaction from the audience out there, which is pretty much how the board feels too. How do you do this?
Well, I guess some of you won't have to worry about it. Director DeFau.
Has there been any, will there be any consideration of repurposing not 1 but perhaps 2 schools?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we're going to get a report from the consultants, and certainly that could be a consideration.
Okay. In looking at the year 2 recommendations, I am not optimistic that a future board would be any more supportive of the change from block to traditional schedule than the board was this year. So, and I understand the rationale for having it on the table, and you know your rationale for advocating for it as the largest, most sustainable change we could put into effect beyond repurposing more than 1 school. I mean, I understand that. That being said, there clearly was not support for that change. And so counting on that, I think, is probably ill-advised. I know that makes some of those additional budget reduction options perhaps even more inevitable, though I would strenuously, you know, I look at that list and I think, how can we do that? You know, how can we, you know, advocating for a 4-day work week in the summer has been something that's been discussed in the past. Is something that I think is worth exploring. You know, but looking at those other options, a lot of those things are the value addeds that we hang our hat on and take pride in as a district. And, you know, if anything comes out of this conversation and with this lack of you know, a large audience, is it's imperative that we get our community to pitch a fit in Des Moines, because we're clearly not being listened to. And, you know, there was some information being shared, again, from another superintendent on Facebook today, from the Cedar Rapids Gazette. And I would encourage anybody that has access to Facebook to take a look at that. I posted it on my own page and encourage people to reach out, because we are not being listened to, even by the media in our own community. Yeah. So, we're in, yeah, it's a dire place to be.
Concerning the 4-day work week in the summer, we're close to doing that, but we do have some negotiation. There's some contracts, so we're asking if they will support us in that.
Any other, Director Dickman.
On the have athletics and marching band count for PE credit, would show choir also be considered for that?
Quite possibly.
Okay.
Have to give that some consideration.
I mean, a lot of the things on this list are painful at best, but I think that the students might appreciate almost having more flexibility in their schedule, since they are getting a considerable amount of physical activity through those activities. And also considering, I do feel that we should provide extra support to Jefferson, but perhaps reducing the amount of extra support is another area we could find. Currently, we give them an extra $350,000 per year. If we only did $250,000 or $150,000, I don't know if it would continue to make a substantial difference in what they can offer for their students. But that is another way that we could find extra, I don't want to call it extra, but money.
Director Kluhl.
Just in regards to what's on and off the table, I think the last time that the board took a look at block versus traditional, we were assuming that allowable growth would be no less than 3%. I mean, we just could not imagine that it would be less. But looking at 1.25 and 2.45, I think is another day for board members to take a look at block versus traditional. I mean, there's just not much left to do. We're at the bottom of the barrel, so it gives it a different look. So I would say that block versus traditional, the board is going to have to look at that again. So I think it's reasonable to include on the list, from my perspective.
Director DePaul.
I don't think it's unreasonable. I think it's unlikely. I understand why it's there. And, you know, I would reiterate, and when I was looking at the list, yes, counting show choir, athletics, and marching band as PE credit, those kids bust their behinds, you know, week in and week out, and it certainly is as rigorous as PE class. Sorry, gym teachers or physical education teachers. Anyway.
And I would perhaps urge to push that up into this year's potential budget cuts.
I think that's a good idea.
And also I support the idea of repurposing a school or two if we continue with our enrollment trends.
I want to point out that having athletics and marching band and show choir as a PE means that we eliminate PE classes, which means eliminate PE teachers. And if we did it this year, the likelihood of us finding them other jobs would not be there, and that would violate my philosophical approach, which is to not fire anyone. So, again, I just want to point that out as why I did move it up into this year.
And remember that repurposing would have to be made the October before the next year. So there are going to be recommendations made later this year somehow. and if something is to be done, that recommendation would probably be made in October for the following year. I got a headache. Any additional discussion? I'm serious. I don't know if it's just the stress of all this, but my gosh, I think of things oftentimes from my perspective in business, and these are just fantastically dramatic cuts that we're making. And it's different from, looking to make a profit in business is one thing, but to make these potential cuts on year 2, not in priority order, are stunning. And Director DeFau said, we've got to get our community and our media involved. And I will say that the media has asked me if they can help us with messaging. I think it's really, really difficult, however, to get the community to understand what this is really like. And maybe we need to, I don't know if how we get the community to understand. How can they understand this? Julie DeSalvo and her son, Anthony, they had an effort a couple of weeks ago. It was a letter writing campaign to the legislators and perhaps to the governor to talk about this, and they're trying to get the community involved. And I thought they were both really articulate presenters in the way that they presented it. And one of the things that Anthony talked about was how these cuts directly would affect him. And maybe there's some things we can learn. Maybe there's some additional things we can do. I don't know the answer. Maybe we just leave it to our legislative advocacy committee to get her done. But anyway, Director Kluhl.
You're not going to get many people to join up with you on the Fantastic Monday bandwagon.
No, probably not. Not on this. Okay, any other discussion? Superintendent Tate, have you heard enough from the board?
I have.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Well, let me get back to our agenda then.
May I? I'm
yeah,
sorry.
Sure. Director DeFau.
In looking at the proposed reductions that you've included here, is there anything from the original Resource Allocation Committee report and their recommendations that we may not be considering? And would it be reasonable to pull out those recommendations again, just to see if there's something that we may be overlooking or set aside at that time? As Director Kluhl made mention, when you are facing this economic reality, some of the things that were set aside at that time may not seem as unreasonable. And I'm not referencing any specific one thing I recall, but it's because I don't specifically recall that I'm asking if it'd be relevant to see that information again.
We've done that very quickly. I think we need to take a more careful look. When I asked some people to put this recommendation together, that's one of the things they did was go back and see what may have been proposed in the years past. But another careful look certainly wouldn't hurt.
Anything else? All right, we'll move to administrative reports. Superintendent Tate.
None, Mr. President.
We'll move to board reports. I do have a few requests. Any reports?
Mr.
Director
President.
Crumwitty.
Yeah, this is not an uplifting note either. But on behalf of the board, I would like to express our condolences to a couple of families. First of all, the family of Tim Stauffer. Tim Stauffer was passed away very suddenly, and at age 66. He was a very devoted member of the Davenport School District. He did things well beyond his retirement, but he was a teacher, he was a counselor, and an administrator in this district for over 37 years, and still came back and did some other things and filled in for some people, which I didn't even know about until after Tim had passed away. So most of his work took place at SMART and Sudlow and Williams, and we would certainly like to express our condolences to Liz and to his children. He was a great member of our staff and always had a smile on his face. Now, our condolences also to the family of a very classy lady. And I think all of us remember her, Wilma Nichols. Wilma died at age 100. Wilma was a long-time member of the Davenport school system, and she came back every year and played the piano at the staff retirement parties up until just a couple of years ago. So even when she was in her 90s, she was playing the piano for us at the retirement parties. So we will always remember Wilma. She was a very lovely lady, and our condolences go to her family.
Any other board reports? I'll get to requests then in just a minute. I have a real brief report. I wanted to mention that, especially for our newest board member, Linda, normally we try to have our board meetings run no more than 2 hours. And so this one has been a little bit longer than normal, and so I hope it hasn't been too tough. Okay. It's a goal. All right. We'll move to board requests from Director Dickman, date 2/9/15, agenda item, discuss the merits of including community members on board committees. There were many applicants for the remainder of Director Sherwood's term, and it would be a shame to miss out on the ideas and passion they had to help help Davenport students. Director Dickman, 2/9/15, information request. What could be done to fill the gaps, in quotation marks, if the district reduces busing for middle and high school students to the minimum legal requirements? Would start times be able to be adjusted with the lower reliance on buses? Director Dickman, agenda item. Change my previous request of a discussion item on tools of the mind to discuss the board's role in curriculum within the district. Thank you very much. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. This meeting is adjourned.